Folks, it's 5 o'clock. Good evening and welcome to each of you. Welcome to the Carter County Courthouse, the People's House. You know, Carter County is a great place to live, work, and play. And the primary reason is the people. And tonight, we're going to honor and recognize just a few individuals as we do each month. We're going to say thank you for the service to your community, to your country. So we have 5 people that we'll be recognizing, or groups tonight, total. Immediately afterwards, those of you that can stay, there will be a reception downstairs. Chairman Acuff and the commission has made arrangements for some cake and punch and the like for just a brief celebration, provided you can stay. If not, we understand. It's a beautiful day out there. We are truly blessed people, aren't we? So we'll get started. We'll jump right into this. And tonight we're gonna do somewhat of an inverse order as to what we've done in the past. We're going to recognize those that are the most mature first and let the younger folks stay toward the end. So we hope that you enjoy. The General Federation of Women's Clubs is an international women's organization dedicated to community improvement by enhancing the lives of others through volunteer service. Since 1890, General Federation of Women's Club and Club Women have been the fabric that binds not only the Federation, but the communities in which they live and work. By living the volunteer spirit, GFWC Club Women transform lives each day, not simply with monetary donations, but with hands-on, tangible projects that provide immediate impact to the community. With over 80,000 members in affiliate clubs in every state, the District of Columbia, and more than a dozen countries, GFWC members work in their own communities to support the arts, preserve natural resources, advance education, promote healthy lifestyles, encourage civic involvement, and work toward peace and understanding. The Elizabethan Women's Club was organized in 1930 by Miss Betty Vaught. Over the years, it has grown and adapted to the changing times. Currently, the club has 15 members. Each year in November, the club hosts the Christmas Arts and Crafts Show. This event provides the necessary funding for its many activities and support programs. A few of the club's most recent projects are those pertaining to youth first. High school scholarships awarded to one graduating senior from each of the 5 high schools. Cash donations to East Tennessee Children's Home and Academy and Isaiah House 117. Book donations to promote literacy in Tennessee. Items supplied that were needed to start yoga classes at East Tennessee's Children's Home and Academy. Donations of activity books and crayons to the Elizabeth and Carter County Health Department. Where seniors are concerned, they've provided lap robes to our local nursing homes on a rotational basis. They have sewn and knitted warm caps for patients receiving cancer treatment. They've made comfort pillows for cancer patients recovering from surgery. Other civic activities include cash donation to the Downtown Christmas Lighting Project, cash donation to Recovering Warriors, decorated wooden squares that promoted East Tennessee authors and books. And this particular square that they crafted was incorporated into a quilt, a wooden quilt that is displayed in Washington, D.C. They've also donated assorted items for welcome home bags to returning military personnel. And they have made many cash donations to the Second Harvest Food Bank. The club has 4 standing committees: Finance, Scholarship, Bylaws, and ESO. The presiding officers are Patricia Mossman, President, Betty Bowers, First Vice President, Robin Lowsberg, Second Vice President, Sue Fanning, Secretary, Ruth Ritchie, Treasurer. Members Gertrude Bishop and Leo Duncan joined the Women's Club in 1990. Miss Bishop celebrated her 100th birthday in July of 2017. Isn't that a milestone? Congratulations. Carter County is truly blessed to have such a dedicated team of volunteers that are working constantly to make our community a better place for us all. Please help me welcome the Elizabethton Women's Club representatives. Ladies. Let's do this.
You want to come over there?
I'll come here.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Great milestone. Thank you. Appreciate it. Everybody's partying, everybody's here, healthy, sun's shining. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies, I'd just like to present you with this small, this plaque, a small token of appreciation for your service to Carter County. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the welcome. I was born in this town. My parents lived in 1951. I came back 13 years ago, and it's still the same wonderful town that I grew up in Harold McCormick. And it's just a pleasure to be here and with a wonderful group of women at work. Thank you so much.
This next hometown hero was born in Old Butler in Johnson County on August the 12th, 1918. He attended St. Valley Elementary School, a one-room school. During the 7th grade, his family moved to Stony Creek, where he attended Midway Elementary. At the early age of 13, he was working a team of horses and honing his skills as a farmer. You know, that is totally understandable, for at that time the citizens were dependent upon the food they raised for survival. He was drafted and then inducted into the United States Army in 1941. 7 weeks of basic training was completed in Georgia, and he was later sent to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. While there, he participated in many maneuvers in North and South Carolina. During this time, he was issued a 3-day pass before being shipped to Europe. While on the 3-day pass, he married, but had to leave his bride behind, like so many others at the time. He was then assigned to the 3404 Ordnance Corps, a sustainment branch of the United States Army. This division is responsible for the production, acquisition, and sustainment of weapons systems, ammunition, missiles, and ground mobility material during peace and war to provide combat power to the U.S. Army. This soldier then boarded ship and after several days arrived in Casablanca, Morocco's Chief Seaport. While on patrol, his unit marched across Spain, France, Italy, and Germany. During this time period, he was subjected to and had to endure extreme weather, both hot and cold. At one point in Italy, while under enemy attack, a mortar round hit the building he was stationed in at that point. The building collapsed on him and he sustained a back injury. 5 entrymen were killed in the incident. He witnessed very horrific events. One of the most notable incidents was when wounded soldiers were being transported for medical treatment. The German troops opened fire on the medevac team and killed them all. This soldier, in addition to being awarded the Purple Heart, was issued many service medals. He was discharged in June of 1945. Upon returning home, he finally got to see his 3-year-old son for the first time. He ultimately had 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. He lived a good number of years at 819 North Rome Street here in Elizabethton. His first job after the war was with the Carter County Motor Company as a heavy-duty truck mechanic. His military background had prepped him for that. He worked there for approximately 19 years. The next job was with the City of Elizabethton at the city garage, also doing truck maintenance and repair. He was there for approximately 2 years. Immediately afterwards, he went to work for the United States Postal Service. He retired in 1985. Since then, he has worked at maintaining his home and has been very active in his church. Another important element of our community. Please help me welcome Mr. Blaine Hartley. Mr. Hartley, thank you for your service to our country and to our county. We really appreciate you. Again, just a small token of appreciation from myself and Commission for your years of service. Thank you. Mr. Hartley does have several members of his family with him here tonight, so if you wouldn't mind standing, let's recognize them as well, okay? The next individual was born in Carter County on July 16, 1921. There was a total of 5 siblings in his family, 4 girls, with he being the only boy. He lived in the East Side community and attended Duffield Academy through the 3rd grade. The Duffield Academy was established in 1806 and was originally built near the Doe River around 1809 and was the first school in Elizabethton. A new building was built following the Civil War and was renamed Davies Academy. It was used as an elementary school by the Elizabethton City School System. It now serves as the central office for Carter County Board of Education. He entered Harold McCormick in the 4th grade and then Lynn Avenue School in the 8th grade. At the age of 18, like so many others in the area, he began his working career by gaining employment at Benbar Corporation. In early 1942, the United States was experiencing heavy casualties on the front battle lines in Germany, and replacements were needed as soon as inductees were trained. At the age of 21, this individual was drafted into the United States Army. He was inducted and processed at Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia. Basic training was completed at Miami Beach, Florida, and Columbus, Ohio. Then he was sent to Fort Worth, Texas for extensive weapons training. Immediately thereafter, he boarded ship and 12 days later landed in Le Havre, France. He was then trucked to the front lines and assigned to the 3rd Armored Division. This unit was responsible for protecting the tanks as they traversed the landscape while engaging in battle daily. It is hard for us to imagine what these soldiers had to endure over the course of those many months and years. They were constantly placed in imminent danger and had to witness horrific battle scenes, which many times resulted in dismemberment and death. Also, they were subjected to these extreme temperatures that I mentioned earlier, both hot and cold, and never had a bed really to rest in at night, for they were constantly on the move. This soldier was blessed in that he never sustained any major physical injuries. When the war ended, he was assigned to the military police for maintaining order in those provinces. During his time of military service, he was awarded many American and European theater medals and a Bronze Star. Upon discharge from the Army, he returned home to Carter County. In 1946, he obtained employment as a construction worker with TVA. He was first assigned to the Watauga Dam project. Once it was completed, he transferred to South Holston Dam project. In 1948, he went to work, went to Aiken, Georgia, and worked on an atomic energy plant for approximately 2 years. Once back home, he went to work for Tremel Construction Company. One of the largest projects he was assigned at that time was the redevelopment of an old golf course in Bristol into a residential housing community. In 1959, he was hired by Raytheon Corporation in Bristol. He worked there for 25 years as a machinist in the heat treat department. Please help me welcome Mr. Roscoe Elliott. Sir, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for your service to the country. Also with Mr. Elliott tonight are some of his family members, his daughter and her husband. Well, thank you. The next honoree was born on March 13, 1934 in the Stony Creek community. He attended Unaka Elementary. His father at the time, of course these were war times, went to work at Oak Ridge, and he decided to move the family to Elizabethton. He attended Elizabethton High School. On October 11, 1951, he joined the Navy. He was shipped immediately to Great Lakes Naval Base in Chicago, Illinois for his basic training. After graduation, he boarded a freight train and traversed the country. Upon arrival in San Francisco, he was tasked with recommissioning the USS Rolette, a World War II cargo ship. Had to be brought back into operation for the Korean War. He served as a border technician and was responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the equipment which was necessary to keep the ship in motion. This ship's primary purpose was to transport landing craft, troops, and supplies to wherever they were needed. It initially operated within the Pacific Fleet on the West Coast, but in 1952 it was transferred to the Atlantic Fleet. The ship traveled south through the Panama Canal and then up to Norfolk, Virginia. There were many trips back and forth to Puerto Rico, transporting Marine units to Roosevelt Roads for amphibious landing maneuvers. In 1953, the ship was assigned to a 6-month cruise in the Mediterranean Sea. In 1954, the ship was reassigned to the Pacific Fleet and sent to San Diego, California. The most disruptive incident that this soldier endured was an injury sustained while loading 20mm magazines. The result was 60 stitches in the left hand. Being left-handed, that puts you at somewhat of a disadvantage. And 19 weeks in Balboa Naval Hospital, working much of that time while in the hospital, though, in a dental laboratory. He was discharged in 1955. Back home in Carter County, employment opportunities weren't the best, so he was able to obtain employment. His first job in 1955 was with M.M. Jones as an electrician's helper. His wage rate was 85 cents per hour. Later, he worked as a pipe fitter or sprinkler fitter in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Afterward, in 1957, he went to Knoxville, working as a carpenter's helper. During this time, Ford Motor Company built a new automatic transmission plant in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was hired by Ford. The first 9 months, he worked 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, with only 2 days off. You know, just think about that. His outstanding performance resulted in promotion to foreman. He worked in that role until September 1964. At that time, he decided to leave manufacturing for a sales position in the division of heavy trucks. His first assignment was with Ron Hennard of Bristol. Ron immediately sent him to Atlanta, Georgia for a month to the Ford Institute. While there, this gentleman learned how to build custom trucks for specific jobs. Just, you place the order, whatever the need is, he could do it because he knew everything about the engines, the drive axles, everything. And that was important at the time because of the coal mines within the region were in full force. So this proved to be a wise business decision. He later worked for Don Hill, Bob Mullins, and Campbell International all the way through like 1971. Then he decided to move to Chattanooga. The business market continued to be exceptional until the sharp rise of inflation during the late 1970s, which ultimately resulted in a deep recession. Also, we had all those gas lines, you know, at that point in time. Lots of things going on. It brings back memories. Interest rates in the double digits, near 21%, coupled with that energy crisis, ended this phase of his career. Basically, that brought an end to it because people simply could not afford the products. And if they did buy the trucks, they couldn't afford the gas to go in them. I mean, it was a double-edged sword. So he then moved back to Elizabeth in 1981. He and his wife decided, you know, we'll just go into business. And they chose the antique business. They then bought their first of many buildings here in Elizabeth. This one was on Johnson Avenue. In 1988, his wife decided to expand the operations through the purchase of a bridal shop on Sycamore. This put them in the wedding business in a very big way. In October of 1988, they leased the church right across the street here on Main and ultimately purchased it. The business flourished and continued to grow exponentially. It's understandable in that they had developed a solid reputation of providing exceptional service with extreme attention to detail with every ceremony. They were doing 3 to 4 weddings each Saturday with clients coming from across the country. In 1996, they expanded even farther through the purchase of the C.B. Johnson building and Barnes Boring Hardware on Elk Avenue. These business entrepreneurs throughout the late 80s and early 90s were extremely active in the local community. Their son Scott had an interest in baseball, so they took leadership roles in the American Little League. They worked diligently, the family worked diligently, to organize and improve the league. While serving as the vice president, he initiated the filings for a charter for the Carter County American Little League. He also served as president of the league for 2 years. During the first season, his group of volunteers built new press boxes, installed billboards, 3 new flag poles, still standing, installed dugout covers, and made countless other improvements to the ballpark. His wife and daughter, Marina, worked the concession stand. This park is just across the way. It's adjacent to the jail. Most importantly, with their efforts, they eliminated all fees that had been previously required for children to participate. That's wonderful. You know, it gave opportunities to children that couldn't have participated otherwise. They made it a truly volunteer organization which proved to be extremely profitable and provided countless opportunities for our youth. This couple is most definitely deserving. It was truly a great loss for our community when Jan Peters moved to our heavenly home a few years ago. Jan Peters, help me out. Ed, we appreciate you. You and that Jan and the family.
Speak, Ed.
Want to come forth and offer a few words?
Well, okay. That'd be good. Just a total surprise. We had one a few days ago. I wasn't expecting it. But we do appreciate it for the recognition. I will correct one thing. I attended this in high school, I did in junior high.
You know how it is, Ed, when I do these narratives, I write fast and sometimes I make a few errors, so I stand to be corrected. Okay? I need to be corrected from time to time. So Abby, we need to make certain we hit paper that we make that one edit, okay? But thank you, Ed. I appreciate you.
Appreciate your promotion.
Okay. There's days when this mayor has a hard time keeping composure. You know, it's we've got so many great people here tonight, and people that have served a century, and you know, it's enough to bring some emotion. So, finally, our next honoree. This individual was the daughter of a preacher and a 1988 graduate of Elizabethton High School. At a young age, she lost her father to cancer. Like so many who experience such a tragic loss, she went through a rebellious phase where she blamed God for the loss of her father. Later, she joined the United States Navy and ultimately renewed her relationship with God. It was this renewed relationship that gave her the strength that she would need to face the countless ordeals that lay before her. While in the Navy, she married. Only 4 months, though, into that marriage, her husband was involved in an automobile accident where he sustained a head injury. The injury changed his personality. His spontaneous reactions to the simplest issues coupled with drug addiction resulted in her ultimately becoming a domestic violence victim. This in turn yielded 2 miscarriages before giving birth to a beautiful daughter. Fearing for the well-being of herself and child, she finally, after 5 years, developed the courage and strength that she needed to take a stand and leave her husband. As a single mother, she searched for counseling and assistance. Being actively employed, though, she soon found out that there were no assistance programs which she could qualify for. In 1993, she married her soulmate. He adopted her daughter. All was good, so she enrolled in college to continue her education. While in college, God laid it on her heart to write a paper on abortion. And in writing the paper, He also laid it on her heart to start a program to assist young women who find themselves in crisis. In 2000, she founded the Abortions, Alternatives, and Women's Center. This organization serves as a crisis pregnancy center for married and unmarried clients. It offers them support and services from the time pregnancy is confirmed through the child's first year of life by assisting these women in obtaining not only items needed for the child, such as food, diapers, clothing, car seats, and baby beds, but also parenting classes and referrals for counseling pertaining to issues such as substance abuse, domestic violence, and public housing. Over the years, the organization grew to meet countless needs that were identified. In 2013, she founded the TLC Community Center. The center offers the following services, and these are just a few of them. The Summer Food Program, which provides meals to children during the summer months when school is not in session. This center has a fully equipped community kitchen for preparing large amounts of food at a single time for the summer food program, as well as free holiday meals for clients and others in the community. Food for the Multitude, which works with area churches to provide meals to the community on weekends. The Guard Your Heart Abstinence Program, which is taught in all Carter County high schools. This class is taught through the freshman wellness class and meets Tennessee Department of Education state curriculum requirements. That's an accomplishment. Little Feet Children Ministry, which is geared toward helping the special needs children of our community. Neighborhood libraries. You know, many of our families live in rural areas and are not able to take their child to the public library. So the center brings the library to them. Project Hometown Bundles of Love. These bundles are made up of hygiene items, school supplies, personal items, small toys of some sort, and a personal note of encouragement, sharing God's love in each bundle. Her most recent project is TLC Town, which was unveiled just last month. TLC Town is a small-scale replica of Elizabethton. It has a veterans monument, covered bridge, church, school, pet hospital, grocery store, and several other buildings. The base of the Veterans Monument holds a sensory room where overstimulated children may calm down in a quiet, calm place. The intent of TLC Town is to make the bigger world of Elizabethton more friendly to children with sensitivity difficulties. This is a tremendous asset for our community. The person's list of achievements go on and on. It is extremely obvious to me that there is no single individual that has done more for the children of Carter County. There is no one that I know which has such grand visions and has worked as hard to mold these visions into reality. That's important. Follow through. Please help me welcome Miss Angie Odom. Angie?
My child's going to come up here. She'll be afraid I'm leaving her. Come on. Come on. Well, first I want to say it's not me. It's first God. And then it's the awesome people of our community. None of the things that you listed that we've done could happen if we didn't have an awesome community and even people over the Tri-Cities that reach out and help us be able to have the funds to do what we do. If somebody had told me we'd have all these programs, I'd tell you it's crazy and I need more energy. But God has opened the door right when it needed to be opened. And He's just, I say it and people think, oh, you're just being gracious. I still don't know what I'm doing. I really can say that. I have to totally rely on God, and it is truly relying on God lots of times. We have never accepted state and federal funding. We don't have grants. We don't have, all of these things that some of the larger organizations have. But what we do have is the freedom to serve anyone who walks through our door without any paperwork requirement. And we get to share the love of God however we choose to when they walk through our doors. And to me, there's no amount of money that could equal that freedom. With the libraries in the town, I have different people that say, hey, I'll go check that library and keep the books in. It's people of our county remembering to bring us used books. We have 20. There's a lot of books in 20 libraries. But now, with the summer food program, just like all of those meals, we finished over 75,000 meals last summer. In one summer, that's how many meals. We couldn't have bought those meals or gave out those meals without the support of the people helping us pay for these meals and driving these meals around. And I have to give credit to my poor family. I say poor family because my husband works for the city. He gets off work. He comes and does maintenance, trash, you name it. He drives those vans. He knows the kids by name on his food route. My daughter, Bethany, she was 8 years old when I started seeing her. And she has been there playing office when she was little and now truly working in the office as now a 26-year-old. And of course, Mom, she's there to help us now with all of our girls. It was scary. And Bella. Bella has taught me a lot. And I'm telling you what she should teach each and every one of you right now sitting and looking at her. Because there is a God. And as long as there is breath in our body, there's always hope. And there's hope to make many changes. And through her little twerks and little issues that she may have to struggle with, we will, I want you to hear the word will, with God's help, make a difference to where we don't have to have any more children keep going through the things and the struggles that kids have to go through due to drugs. Due to a 31-year-old lady still laying in that nursing home today and a choice she made back in 2012 that put her there. Then seeing her, she was part of this county. She was a member of this community. And do you know right now I can't even get her in a different nursing home because people don't serve people that's on drugs. We're hurting them. Just look at our stats. But this little girl, as I'm talking to you, is having muscle cramps. But you know what? We rub them and we get through it. But thanks to the people at Roger Dowry and some people that help build, we have a little place for them to talk back. Therapy services out of Johnson City, they've just committed to providing OT therapists to the TLC Center. It'd be full days on Monday and 3 other mornings till noon. They've committed to hiring another speech therapist, so now we will have 4 speech therapists and 1 OT therapist at our TLC town, which has created jobs, but it's going to provide help for our kids. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of the people of the community, and thank you for your all's support in 19 years. And I will be quiet.
About you, but my heart's been touched here tonight, and I really appreciate all of you coming. I appreciate you being there, supporting the honorees. There will be a small reception if you can stay for that downstairs in the main hallway. So at this time, you're adjourned. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
There's a resolution. Come to order. We're on item 15, resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of the Tennessee General Assembly supporting legislation establishing Medicaid 10-care rate as the maximum chargeable for inmates in county jails and state prisons. County Attorney, I'm going to let you walk us through that, or at least give an overview, so everybody knows what we're voting on.
Okay, basically what this does is recommend or lend support for state legislation that would change the law in regard to Medicaid 10-care rates being the maximum amount that can be charged for inmate care. Twofold, basically it would protect the county as far as the funding. Obviously the county is responsible for funding for the medical care for inmates housed here locally, and obviously it would also ensure that maybe inmates would receive proper care, because there may be instances where cost would be an issue. But if this state legislation was adopted, it would address both points by making Medicaid 10-care rates all that can be charged and ensuring that the state kicked in and paid for inmate care. So that's the basic gist of it. Yes, sir.
Let's talk about a question on this. Does this take in the federal prison too, or just state prison?
Just
Inmates housed here in Carter County, we're responsible.
What county?
Inmates that would be housed here in Carter County is what we're responsible for funding. The state contract and the federal contract, I mean, that includes medical care and those contracts with them.
Well, how much did we get before? Did we get to what the law allows pays?
Yes, sir. Right now, it's just whatever they decide to charge. But this legislation at the state level would cap it at whatever 10-care Medicare would pay. So it would put a cap on what can be charged. And also by relieving the burden on us, because it puts a cap, it would also ensure that maybe some inmates who weren't getting proper care because of the cost could.
Well, what 10-care pick, how much they pay on each instrument?
What this does is limit it to what they will pay. Right now, they can charge way up and above what 10-care will pay. This legislation, if it's adopted at the state level, would limit it, say, all you can charge for this inmate's treatment is the 10-care payment. Right now, we would be responsible for everything above that.
County would be.
Yes, sir.
that's correct. Commissioner Grindstaff and then Commissioner Hogan.
Just real quick, Josh, this is a resolution that was brought up during health and welfare. Mr. Owen probably add more than I can. But this is to request that the state government adopt this and look into these policies to limit the amount of cost that is incurred by the counties and unfortunately extend out to the states. Is that correct? This is just forwarding this on our support.
Right, you're limiting county support. It's a state law. It has to be changed by state legislature. This is just Carter County supports it, is all this is.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hogan?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
And second.
Motion by Commissioner Hogan, seconded by Commissioner Hill. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, Madam Clerk, call roll. Mr. Lyons? Thank you. 20 ayes, 1. Resolution passes. Thank you. Item number 16A&B, these are materials for the Freestar program requirements, which you also have a resolution in your packet that we will vote on next. What I'm looking for here is a motion to ensure that this legislative body has both of these items. You have them in your packet, and hopefully you have reviewed them and read them. But it is a requirement for the Freestar program that you receive the items, and in order to do that, we need a motion from the floor to say that yes, we received them. I don't know if you read them or not, if you haven't. So is there a motion for receiving these two items?
Mr. Chairman, I so moved. I have read.
Okay, second. Commissioner Lyons, any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, you're voting on that you have both of these documents in your packet. And hopefully you have read them. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Those documents are the Carter County Debt Management Plan and Carter County Financial.
Did we call for discussion?
I did, we did. Okay. One abstention, 20 ayes. All right, the item number 17 is a resolution to affirm compliance with the 3-star program that's in your packet. County Attorney, you want to give us just an overview of what you've compiled here for the resolution? It's coming from the Health and Welfare Committee.
Sure, this is the resolution that we adopt basically every year and have for the last several years. To maintain compliance with the 3-star grant program, we have to annually submit, the mayor has to sign and submit a letter saying that we have reviewed the debt management policy, the cash flow forecast that you all just voted and said you did. And thirdly, that we recognize there's a requirement for internal controls in each of the county offices. All the county offices have those policies, and you just voted that you reviewed those 2 documents. So all this resolution is formally stating that and allowing the mayor to sign the letter to send in affirming our compliance.
Is there a motion? Okay. Motion by Commissioner Holderness, a second. Commissioner Grindstaff, a second. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay. Madam Clerk? All ayes, thank you. Item 19, I've asked Attorney Pardon just to clear up the status of the relationship between Carter County and Carter County tomorrow. This was, we've had discussions back and forth on the floor in several committees. I've also had constituents who have been in our courtroom during the commission meeting when this issue came up. I thought we had severed our ties with Carter County tomorrow, so I'm going to allow Attorney Pardon just to clear the air.
Well, we basically have severed our ties with Carter County tomorrow. The only link existing between us and them is they are a tenant at the Workforce Development Complex that Carter County owns. They are an economic development agency. They are a separate entity incorporated in Tennessee. It could be the Carter County jugglers. Anybody can name themselves Carter County something. That doesn't mean they're affiliated with Carter County government. So they're a separate entity. They have no obligation to report anything to us. They simply are a tenant at a building that we own, and that lease has 4 or 6 more years. I can't remember. I think it's 4 more years left. And when that lease ends, or if it ends earlier for any reason, that's the end of any relationship we have.
Do they owe us any money?
They do owe rent. They're not delinquent on rent, to my knowledge. They owe rent annually, and I think it was to start either this year or next year. I don't remember. But as far as I'm aware, they're in compliance with the lease and the agreement that was reached when that lawsuit was settled. So they owe us rent annually, but I don't believe they're delinquent on anything right now. And they also had the obligation of the elevator and the roof. I think the roof's done, the elevator is in progress.
The elevator done.
I don't have any knowledge that it's done. Last I heard, it was still under construction.
Commissioner Meehan?
Do we still have commissioners involved with that Carter County tomorrow?
As far as I know, we have 2 on the board, still serving on the board. Like I said, it's a separate entity, and they can have their own structure, and we really have no control.
How does that connect or disconnect our relationship with Carter County if we have 2 commissioners on that board?
Well, I guess you could look at it 2 ways. One, you've got folks with a voice on that board that are in this body, so that could be a good thing. But there's no requirement that we have anybody, and there's no mandate that we can't. It's up to them who they want to be on their board. We have 2 members here who serve on that board. I don't believe they're paid for that anymore. No. So, they're free to do that. It's a separate entity, and they can serve on that board if they desire to.
Commissioner Carroll.
May I ask how much rent they pay the county, the facility?
I think it's 41,000. 41. I think it's 41,000 annually.
How is that money incorporated into our budget?
It's in your budget revenues as lease payments. Goes into your general fund.
Any other questions for Attorney Harden? We have time for reports. Mayor, do you have a report, sir?
First, I'd like to just bring you up to speed. You know, last month, you just never know in that situation, do you take a dive or what? But last month, we did play for you the CBS report from July of last year, talking about all of the great things that a similar county in Tennessee, a Tier 4 at-risk county, had achieved as far as economic impact. Just very quickly, in 17, Dayton, Tennessee, Ray County, realized a $14 million economic impact, and that happened relatively quickly. They were in the same situation that we in Carter County are. They, like we, had not invested any money into land so that we could market to prospective business owners, new businesses coming to our county. We should have been investing many, many years ago, but we haven't. So myself and you and all the people in the county just keep talking about jobs, jobs, jobs. We need them. And that's understandable because we are in somewhat of a pickle right now. When you look at the 2016 census data and compare it to the actual data of 2010, we are right at 1,000 less people than we had then. We are a mature population. Our mortality rate is 12 to 13%. We're also not giving our youth the incentive that they need to stay here. We're conditioning them immediately upon graduation to head north, west, south, wherever but Carter County. So, folks, when you think about that, we have to take immediate action to reverse those negative trends. And I know it's not been part of your roadmap. It's not been on the map at all. But I'm here to tell you, as mayor of this county, when you look at those facts, we've got to do something quickly. We've got to do something similar to what Dayton did. I have been working extremely hard over the last 2+ years with the Mayor's Office of Economic and Community Development to move this county forward. And I am extremely encouraged and happy to report that we've had tremendous success. $250,000 in grants in 2017, we've got $1 million in the pipeline in 2018. Now that's real money. That's revenue. First time any mayor ever in the history of Carter County has taken those types of initiatives. And I needed your support to make that happen. So everything's great, but we're having to develop relationships across the state of Tennessee. It's taken a long time for that to happen, to be able to get that result. It's taken a tremendous amount of work in the mayor's office to achieve that. And you have to have those relationships. It's not only the relationships here in Carter County, it's at the regional level plus the state level. And I am so happy to report that Ms. Robinson, in her role as Director of the Mayor's Office of Economic and Community Development, has helped expedite those relationships. Mr. Dennis Tumlin, the ECD person in Dayton, Tennessee, you saw him in the video. You also saw the efforts that he was doing that helped him prepare a site that ultimately led to the big fish, and that was Nokian Tire. $300 million investment, 400 new jobs initially, and up to 1,500 jobs potentially. If there's a model out there that works, why would we want to reinvent the wheel? So I reached out to Mr. Tumlin and I invited him here to Carter County. January 31, he arrived. We took a detailed tour around Watauga Lake. We spent the afternoon. The very next morning, I met with Mr. Tumlin and the marina owners, most of the marina owners that were available on Watauga Lake, Lakeshore, Fish Springs, and all the others, Mr. Tipton, Mr. White. He presented a detailed PowerPoint presentation that supported the information that was reported on CBS Morning News. $14 million impact. He showed the actual ramp up of those revenues through sales tax, property tax, and others. It's a real model. This man is extremely experienced. Keep in mind, he was an executive with Coca-Cola, Walmart, searching for years, refining, mining that relationship with Bassmasters. Those tournaments are key. He showed us how to do it. He's such a wonderful gentleman. He's agreed to partner with the mayor's office for the next year to help us emulate something similar here. Now, it's going to take another couple of months, and I'll be visiting him in Dayton, getting a little better understanding of the process. It's taken him years to develop. And then, hopefully, in 2-3 months at the outside, we will have Mr. Tumlin back. This time, he will be giving you that presentation. Now, it's going to take a little bit of investment. We sit here and we cry all day long we don't have any money. We know for a fact that there is money there. And if you don't invest in your community, you're never going to expect, and you should never ever expect any growth. And that's what's got us in the pickle that we're in now, the predicament. So I look forward to that. There was no obligation on his part, but the state of Tennessee is knowledgeable of this effort. He wants to prove to them as well that what he accomplished there can be duplicated. Now, we may not see the same economic impact. Watauga Lake is a little smaller than Chickamauga, but the potential is there. Instead of having 400 bass boats on that lake at any point in time, there's no reason with the infrastructure we have in place now that we can't put 150 boats on that lake. And if we can put together and work diligently through the mayor's office, working with Ms. Robinson, coordinating that, we can put together a similar model. It may not work, but if it doesn't, it's not for my lack of trying. $14 million, folks, in 1 year. Keep in mind, our general fund's only a little over $15 million. So it's a no-brainer. Now, we can argue when it comes to that point in time that we can't afford it and you don't want to do the investment. Then who has controlled the overall ultimate destiny of this county? If you buck that system then, it's not going to be this mayor. It's not on his conscience. But I can tell you right now, what we need to be doing is all of us holding hands and taking these types of opportunities and doing everything we can to move it to the forefront. And it's going to take me 2-3 months to come back. The marina owners assured me that when we get to that level, they'll be sitting right here on the front row with me because they're a believer in that. We have to look at the assets that we have now. We have to promote them to no end, to the extreme end. We've got to do it if we're going to turn this thing around. We've got to invest. We've got to forget about that penny wise, dollar foolish mindset, and we've got to start investing in this community. So I just want you to know it was an extremely positive visit. I really appreciate him and his efforts in trying to help us. Just a wonderful gentleman. And we can learn a lot in a short period of time. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. That's an update there. That's just one of many things that we're doing in the mayor's office. The second item, if you recall, back in September, we all realized that we had a problem with our sound system. We're paying a hefty price each month for this portable equipment to be put in here. And it's not optimal. You know, it's just a Band-Aid. It's a temporary fix. You allowed us to go ahead and put this system out for bids. Working with the finance director, we did that. And as a result, we had four companies that submitted bids. The bid date was December the 11th. That's been a while. Last year, you know, a little bit of time's passed. With the holidays and everything, it caused some delays. Trying to get our schedules together, Mr. Grindstaff, Mr. Smith, and myself to sit down and really evaluate these. We looked in detail at each of the bids. The bids range anywhere from $31,720.48 all the way up to $63,700. Upon the initial review of those bids, it was a consensus of Mr. Grindstaff, myself, and Mr. Smith that we would eliminate the highest bid and the lowest bid. We needed more information before we could actually let this contract between the other two, the mid-range bids. Those being $41,716 from Cates and $42,134.45 from JVS Solutions. We asked those people to come and do an actual demonstration here in the courtroom of their equipment. Because keep in mind, when we put this thing out for bids, we left it kind of open. We didn't specify a particular mic, a particular controller. We didn't specify that. We asked them to come in, take the measurements, look at this piece of this room, this situation, and tell us what they recommend as the best system for not only the commission, but for the courts. Because we want this to be a dual purpose. We know that what we have now is not working. So, as a result, over time, it took a while to get those demonstrations in. They had to order special equipment to have that ready. We brought one of our own in, Mr. Von Cannon, because he has a severe hearing problem. This equipment has to accommodate him, and we felt that if it would accommodate him, it would work with everybody else. Having done that, we realized that there's two totally different systems. One's a good system, then there's one that's by far superior. And the demonstration made that clear. Mr. Grindstaff, Mr. Smith, and I, at this point in time, correct me if I'm wrong, we are in agreement that this contract should be let to Kate's at $41,716.99. This has not been to Budget Committee, other than the initial. You were knowledgeable of it, you authorized it. Time is of the essence. Every month it's costing us $600 to set this courtroom up. So what I would ask tonight is that one of you would move for a budget amendment to allocate that $41,716.99 to allow us to let the contract, the bid to Kate's, and let them begin work as soon as their schedule would allow.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, I do place this in the motion that we accept as recommended by the committee in the amount of $41,716.99 to Kate's Electronics Music Company for the electronic system for this courthouse.
Is there a second?
For that budget amendment.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yes, do we have any money available in the litigation? Yeah, money for this. I mean, I'm talking about what's the law enforcement fund thing? Litigation. Can we use litigation money for this?
Now, they use none on the doors, door system.
They around $250,000.
I would have to look at it to make sure exactly. There's part of it that can be for security, there's part of it that can be for courthouse renovations, but I have no idea what's in there or what amount you would have to spend. I think they have discussed that being used for the new entryway and those kind of things. There's not nearly enough for that.
I mean, I'd like to know where the money's coming from, whether it's coming from general fund or.
I assume from the motion
litigation
it's
fund.
coming from fund balance.
Go from the fund, because we have some to afford.
Take it out of fund balance.
We can't take it from litigation under Christian.
I would rather you didn't, it's kind of easy, I think, if that's okay, and I'm more comfortable taking it from fund balance, we don't have to worry about if that's left or not.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. If I may, why would we rob from Peter to pay Paul? I mean, it's there, it's an obligation. You've already acknowledged that it's an absolute need, not only for this commission, but for this audience. We need to go ahead and expedite this money coming from the fund balance.
Commissioner Garland?
And this is for the installation of this equipment and the
Yes.
system? What about the contract? You mentioned that. Is that going to be a yearly deal there? An annual contract? Any idea on that?
There's no, Mr. Grindstaff?
The services that will be provided is, of course, the equipment, the installation. The equipment that Kate's is offering is wireless mics. And by no means, this is not, all the bells and whistles. This is a mid-of-the-line system, but it allows us to scale into or scale down our services that we can provide. This is a wireless mics. There'd be the same amount of mics as you see here. The difference is, right now, you may pick me up, you may not. You may have interference, you may not. During the demonstration, at Dr. Acuff's seat, using one of those mics, if Dr. Acuff was to take his chair and scoot all the way back in the corner, as far as he could, you could absolutely hear it with these new microphones. I mean, it's a good system. I support it. I agree with the mayor and Mr. Smith that this would be a system that we could utilize. But it's wireless microphones, the microphones where Krista and Dr. Acuff will receive would be wired mics to offset some of the costs, that way it's not as expensive. It gets rid of all these wires, which is part of our issue. We constantly are scooting over wires or walking over wires. That's a big problem. They're going to start looking at replacing the speakers with a higher quality speaker that are tuned to offset the mics themselves. And the biggest and the best thing, in my opinion, that this system will provide us is the ability to offer hearing assisted hearing devices to the commissioners. We'd be getting 4 of those, 5, 4 of those, 4. We'd be getting 4 of those to begin with. We could scale as needed, up to, I think, like 20 or something like that for the first group. They're reasonably priced. If we determine that we need more, we can purchase some more at a later date. One of the things that I've been asked from my constituents, and even that I would recommend, is a little bit later, we have the ability to purchase some cameras to add in. We can then start live streaming meetings. I personally spoke with Chancellor Rambo and Melissa Moreland and asked them their needs, and the biggest thing that the Chancellor stated was, the ability to record meetings, or record court if needed, which this allows, and the ability for assisted listening devices, which this also allows. So it is my recommendation. I can't speak on behalf of the committee for this, but this is my recommendation that we would move forward with.
This also includes the installation of brand new speakers, different technology, as opposed to the paper cones that we have above now. And this demonstration was one speaker sitting over here on the bench. And it would just, the auto ranging, I don't know how it all works. I don't have that technical mind when it comes down to electronics, but it was amazing how it would auto range. And we know that that's a problem now. With these type mics, I was fearful if we got a new system, then we're going to have to educate every one of you to make certain you use your mic, because so often you hit the floor and you don't. But with this system, what we observed, if the installed system works that way, then if you do stand up and you're 3 feet away, it automatically adjusts and you can be heard. So you see how much better a system that is? It's a no-brainer at this point in time.
If I may also, the system also includes updates that come at no charge other than the possibility of some labor time to install the updates. And they said that's for the life of the system. Commissioner Jenkins?
Ms. Berger?
Yes.
If we do approve this tonight, which I think we do, or we need to, is there any way that, say, budget could look at the litigation fund next month to see paying back the general fund, if there's any funds available in litigation fund, if that's okay?
You can. I think what we might want to do is come up with a priority list from buildings and grounds on what we're going to do project-wise, because my concern is not so much funds available, it's we've already talked about other projects to use those funds.
The litigation fund,
Right.
That's right, we have.
Commissioner Brown's staff, and then Commissioner Barnes, and Commissioner Garland.
I just want to add one more thing, which Commissioner Garland asked about yearly maintenance, which of course is something that we need to pay attention to. Much like the current system that we have, unless there is a need or an update, as Mr. Smith was talking about, that we would need, that would be something that would be on an hourly basis. Most of the time, when you get systems set up, as long as the way that this system is set up, it makes it difficult to mess with. It's smart on the inside. There's not a lot of buttons and dials and levers and EQs and all this stuff that we're familiar with. You don't have to worry about Josh monkeying around with our audio or anything else. But it eliminates a lot of that. Once you get the system tuned and the amount of time that they would come in, they would set up, they would tune everything, tune the mics, tune the speakers. There really should be minimum minimum need for any support until later on, and that would be at an hour break. So I think that's all.
Commissioner Martin? Commissioner,
I was just going to ask the question, is there any way to recuperate some of our money from the existing system that we have? Can we sell this and put it on bids?
I can put it on GovDeals. I don't know how much it would bring, but if we're not going to use it, it's obsolete to us. I'd be more than glad to sell it and see what we can get out of it, absolutely. I also have some ancient equipment that's in my maintenance closet. I don't know where it came from, if it's the one we had before this, but I'll sell
My
that
idea
too.
was that maybe some of the churches, maybe like systems like this, I think at least all of somebody.
Commissioner Garland, you had a comment?
Yeah, the important question, you mentioned Mr. Von Cannon, if it meets his approval, I'll probably go with this. How about you, Charles? What's the name?
I was the guinea pig,
Did it work out?
but I'm not the only one that can't hear. There's 6 or 8 of us in this commission that, and in the audience, that's probably more than that. Therefore, either of the systems that we got were acceptable. You know, it was just like all the birds came alive again.
Commissioner Brown?
How long is this system warranted for? I mean, how long do they warranty the system parts?
Each individual part, so all your microphones are warranted under the manufacturer. All your speakers are warranted under, their manufacturer warranty. Each additional part is their own warranty, and I don't have one. It's all in the RFP, it's all in the specs. Most companies, when you put something in, you've got 30 days. They explicitly stated to us that they would probably spend insulation and setup around 2 weeks, not to mention coming to a county commission meeting and possible court to make sure that the system is set up properly. Kate's Music, if you're all familiar with them, they're in Johnson City. They've been great. Granted, we're paying them about $600 or $700 every month to do this setup. This, they come every afternoon. They come in, they get everything set up. It's put up the way that it is. They tie it into the current system we have, and then tomorrow they're going to come in. They're going to take it all down, bring it, take it all back. They're planning to do that. That's pretty decent service. More than what you get out of some places.
Commissioner Johnson?
Mr. Chair, in my motion, I think it should be noted that this should come from the fund balance. None of the projects and their alignments with the building and grounds and involving the litigation tax and all. Give us an opportunity in the future as we go into prioritizing and accepting these projects, that there are funds that are available, and there's nothing that prevents us from amending it and changing, correct?
Correct.
So, but, it's very simple. And we have funds for the balance to it doesn't put us in strain against for the good of our courts and this commission. That's why I'm going to get a second.
All right, we have a motion on the floor, seconded to approve these funds coming from fund balance. $41,000 plus purchase, or to go forward and purchase the system recommended by, if you will, the sound committee. So, Madam Clerk, call roll. Ayes, 1 no, 1 abstention.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and hopefully, of course, we don't know the time frame, but I'll get with them as soon as possible tomorrow and let them know that they've received the bid, the award, and they can go ahead and start ordering the equipment and getting it in here. We'll let you know later as to the time frame. Another item. This item has been to committee. It has been discussed on a number of occasions. And it has to do with ADA assessment and transition plan that's required. Time is of the essence. Time's running out. We did also put this work out for bid, and the bids were opened on February the 8th. There were three bids that were received. Those range from 59,975, or is that 475? 475. It could be interpreted either way. Okay, all the way up to $117,500. Now, Mr. Smith has brought this to Buildings and Grounds. We've talked about it at length. We know that the work has to be done. And Mr. Smith, since you've worked on this, I'll allow you to go ahead and expand as to what action we need to take.
Well, the big thing you need to take is to decide if you're going to fund this or not. Please bear in mind that we have to have the transition plan in place by September of this year. Otherwise, we risk losing highway dollars. Each of the companies appear to be well qualified. All of them understood the items that we put out. There's about 126 buildings, 1,175,000 square feet, plus the sidewalks and everything that have to be included in that. Parking lots and everything along that line to determine accessibility. And this is to identify the discrepancies that we have in existing county facilities and to come up with a plan on how we're going to fix it. And that's where the transition plan comes into place. Yes, sir.
Mr. Smith, why the large gap? Is there, they both were bidding on the same?
They were all bidding on the same thing.
Is there something special about the 117,000? Are they going to present dates and buyers or something to us, or?
I think they have a more robust staff that comes out, based from what I saw, proposal. All of them understood the deadline. We gave them a 31 July deadline on getting the survey done and transition plan to us for your guys' approval. Commissioner Mansell.
This is an item that we've actually discussed both in full commission's year and Building and Grounds. We weren't able to bring the RFP, the answers to Building and Grounds, but this is something that has come up about a year ago, 2 years ago now.
About a year ago.
And he was able to bring it forward to Buildings and Grounds. Gary Smith and Mr. Billy Harrell have been going through, I think they use this building as a guinea pig, I guess you can say, to go through and check on what all this ADA compliance entails. And can you give just like a little example of whenever we talk about this ADA compliance and how big of a undertaking that this actually is?
Well, like I said, we did probably about 90% of the things that were on the checklist for this building. That took the two of us roughly about 6 hours. And that was to go through, we haven't even done the documentation. That was just to go through and identify the items, do rough notes, take some pictures of it. And then, of course, that has to be converted over to the transition plan. I was shocked that there's a lot of things in this building that are not ADA compliant that I actually thought met the current standards, and it doesn't.
And this includes things like walkway slant, carpet on ramps,
grade on the parking lot, any kind of rough spaces on the sidewalks. You got to have cutouts to make sure wheelchairs can get through. Things on the wall that extend out beyond 4 inches, they have to be a certain height, otherwise they have to be removed because someone who's blind coming through can actually hit those things and injure themselves. I mean, it's a very detailed process.
Light switch height, the amount of force that it takes to push open the door, the types of handles that are on their doors. Gary came into Building and Grounds and was able to give us a very thorough overview. He even presented me with a copy of the packet. I looked over it. You know, it is a large undertaking. It has to be done not just at this facility, but it has to be done at every county-owned and operated facility. I guess you can call it that. But every building that the county maintains, this has to be accomplished with. Otherwise, we could run into lots of losses on funds.
Commissioner Johnson and
Question. Either company that does this, once they find the deficiencies, are they providing us with a breakdown on the estimated cost for repair or correction of these items, which will give us a guideline to see what?
I don't know that they give you a breakdown on cost, but they do give you a timeline as far as, you know, they will suggest a timeline for repairing it based on the information that they find and the feedback that we give them. Just like the upgrades that you're talking about with the courthouse security, some of the issues in this building would be corrected with the changes that are being looked at for there. And, you know, a lot of them are small things like the door handles. There's a lot of things that can be corrected that aren't super expensive. We just have to have a timeline showing when we expect to have it done. And then, like I said, the cost, I don't believe they will do that, but I will find out.
No, I mean, that wasn't included because,
No.
you know, the findings on federal requirements always leave the dollar sign.
Commissioner Peters?
ADA's been around for years. Why is this just now being brought to the forefront? I mean, is this, were we reporting for some violations, or why is this just now being?
The way I understand it is basically they're bringing it through with this method to make sure that the counties comply with the cities and counties, because ADA has been around for years, and there's varying levels of compliance across the nation. This is not unique to us. But by having the potential for loss of highway dollars, they know that that's important. So they want to get these things fixed.
Another question. I know, Dr. Ward, the school system has went through some of this ADA stuff in the last year. Is this going to affect every building in the school system?
Yes. They sent us the list of school buildings that was included in this proposal.
Bottom line is, we have to do the assessment and have the plan in place, not that every item has to be fixed on that day. It may take us several years to actually make the adjustments, but we have to have the plan in place. If you don't have the plan, then you risk the loss of the dollars, and we cannot afford to take that risk.
So the plan is costing us between 50 and 100,000, whatever.
The survey and the plan, yes.
I don't think that we've got to have this right all at one time like this. So why can't, I'm gonna make a motion this time, that we turn it back over to the building and grounds and let them study it, bring it before the budget committee.
Sir, if you do that, there's no way we can make the September deadline. If we take this back to the Buildings and Grounds Committee, there is no way that we can make the September guideline.
To September?
This September is when the transition plan has to be in place.
That's a pretty long time.
But it's a massive undertaking.
Now, when you're talking 126 buildings and over 1 million square feet.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll withdraw my motion, but I do want to know where the money's coming from.
Commissioner Behan?
Where did the directive come from that said we had to have this by September?
I would have to go back and pull it.
Well, Nashville, Washington DC, or what?
As I said, I'd have to go back and pull it because I don't remember what office issued.
Then I would not vote for this unless it goes to a committee and we get a little more information.
If I may, this has been through building and grounds. I mean, we looked at it several times. Mr. Smith passed out copies of the checklist about that there. You know, a good inch and a half, maybe 2 inches, front and back. This is kind of one of those mandates that I believe come from the state level. Probably passed down through some federal government law. It goes to the state level. And the state says, you know, the counties need to make sure that we meet ADA guidelines. And in order to apply this, in order to make this and enforce this compliance, we're going to, you know, if you don't put a plan in place, we're going to restrict funding. We voted to have an RFP. To have an RFP. We voted to have an RFP. But knowing the time restraint, I have to commend Mr. Smith. I love him to death with this. I've sent him emails, I've called him, I've asked him about it every couple of meetings. like I said, this guideline is about 2 inches thick, 2.5 inches thick. And he had to break that down into an RFP and send a copy of that RFP out to everybody to have them come in. You have to, in an RFP, you have to expand out the amount of time, let them come in, study what they're going to have to do. I can kind of understand why there's, a very low ball and a very high ball dollar amount, because each office that's looking at this, or each company that bid on this is having to say, well, how much time am I going to have to, how many buildings versus how much time is my group going to have to spend at each building? Mr. Smith said that he spent how many hours here just going through?
6 hours.
About 6 hours. That's 2 people that, getting to know the list and seeing if this was an undertaking that their office could do in-house. Expanding that out to, what? How many buildings?
There's 126 that were included.
There's no way that two individuals can do this. The transition plan is the important thing. That has to be in place by September 1st, I think is what it was.
It just said September 2018.
So, that's something to look at. I agree, it's an outrageous amount of money, and it's an unfortunate state mandate that we're going to have to continue to. But look at the side effects. If we don't, we could potentially have all the state dollars that the highway department gets, bridge money, revoked. Last time I checked highway department fund balance, that was basically the only way we were able to have operations. So just keep that in mind.
Commissioner Ward? One thing I don't understand is that we've been looking at this for a year. Why we haven't had a workshop on this to explain to these commissioners here that we have to make a decision with that kind of money because there's a time limit. I mean, if you guys know this for a year, workshops are very beneficial.
We didn't do workshops, but we have been before buildings and grounds. We've been through this several times, trying to explain the complexity of it, what the importance of it was.
But it's never been brought to the full commission until now when we have to hurry and ram it down our throats.
We brought the information about the requirement before the commission, and then it went to buildings and grounds.
Commissioner Meehan and then Commissioner Francis.
Yes. Again, I want to go back. Is this a federal mandate? And we've had a new administration come into Washington and just trying to undo some of this heavy-handed stuff that's regulatory things that are choking states and local governments. And I again think we need to step back and take a look at this because of the possibility of this new administration relax on some of this.
It's the same.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may, gentlemen, don't act surprised that this is the first time you've heard this. It's been to buildings and grounds. It's been discussed at length. Mr. Meehan, you sat on that committee. You were there. And how you can say tonight that you don't remember any of this?
I didn't say I didn't remember it. I said we've had a new administration since that came before the committee.
Sir, let me finish. Let me finish. But, it's just beyond me how we get lost in the fog. This has been here. We've discussed it. Mr. Smith has been before this full commission and advised that this was a pending matter. We published it. We published it. We did the RFP. We've got the response now. The question is, are you going to comply by September 18 or not? That's the question.
Commissioner Grindstaff.
If I will, if it's all right, I'm going to read you what the actual compliance plan is. I was able to scan that in and save that. It's on State of Tennessee Department of Transportation letterhead. It's dated November 14, 2016, Mayor Leon Humphrey, and it says read, Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, Compliance and Self-Certification. Mayor Leon Humphrey, attached you will find a letter from the Federal Highway Administration Tennessee Division in which the Tennessee Department of Transportation, TDOT, has been informed we must ensure every city and county with 50 employees or more must have an ADA transition plan and self-evaluation in order to receive transportation funds. This letter also serves as notice of the deadline for submission of compliance documentation. The deadlines for submission are as follows, and it lists a couple of dates in December 2016, 2017, and then the one that applies to us is September 2018. Communities must provide documentation showing they have completed or are making significant progress towards completing an ADA transition plan and self-evaluation. All self-certification forms are expected to be returned to Tennessee Department of Transportation. Note, projects may not be advanced within the city or county without the self-certification form. And it states, like I said, September 2018 is when those forms are expected to be returned in. Now, that could be September 1st, it could be September 30th or 31st. I'll answer a couple of questions here. Why was it not brought up? This goes through my committee. When it first came up, it was right at the end of Ray Lyons going out as chair, right as me taking over. I had a little lag getting together to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. Why was it never brought up as a workshop? At the time, the committee did not feel that it was necessary to be brought up as a workshop. Just like Gary Smith's office was, we were trying to figure out what this was. This was a new thing. This was something that had never been presented to Gary Smith's office or Mayor Humphrey that I would know in the past. And this was something that we were trying to grab the undertaking of to see how big of a project this would be. Hence why Mr. Smith and Mr. Harrell have spent their time going through this building and attempting to do this, this, like I said, it's about, well, I can tell you, it's, well, I'm not going to tell you, because it makes you tell me how many pages. It's about that thick, front and back. There's many things on here. Like I said, it encompasses the grade of your parking lot, the grade of your walkways, your hallways. It encompasses your door handles. It encompasses how much pressure that it takes in order to push open the door. I had Mr. Smith go over it with me to make sure that I even fully understand it. Furthermore, he did ask for clarification from the state, I believe, to see which, if any schools, which schools this would apply to, as well as what county buildings. The answer we got back that was brought back to the committee is all of them. Anything that the county has, anything where county employees are, anything where the public can go, because that's what we were told from the state. Next time, if we get this, if the committee feels that we need to have a workshop, we'll have one. I did mention it several times about an ADA transition plan, and that an ADA transition plan was, an RFP was being requested, and that when I had those numbers, I'd bring those numbers forward. I mentioned it at several budget committee meetings. I mentioned it at, in here in front of, in Building and Grounds, many times it was brought up, and in full commissions as updates. This turned out to being a larger project than I think what we were expecting, but at the same time, like I said, TDOT funds, state, federal funds to TDOT, it's kind of it's kind of a hit or miss thing. I agree. Maybe the federal government will say, we don't need to push this as hard as what we have and extend the deadline. I don't want to take that off. I don't want to take that chance out of my committee or out of this. I don't know what Mr. Cobalt's office would do without TDOT funds or without federal funds. And I don't want to find out. I don't want to be responsible for that. Do you have any questions for me? If not, I will sit back down.
I just want to support Mr. Wright said. That's a third of this committee that sits on that board. And that's what committees are in charge for, guys, is to do our homework for us. So on like that, I call question on the motion. We beat this thing to death.
We don't have, we really don't have a motion. There's no motion on the floor.
For what?
Mr. Chair, director of Finance, how do we stand on our fund balance?
You're about,
Don't come, I expect you to come in $20,000 to $30,000, I expect you exact dollar, but
you're at about 5.1.
you're 5.1. But for the amount that was moved over from prior year into our fund balance, if we guard and use, and I know we have used some, as we have tonight, today, how much do we have remaining? Are we comfortable with removing it from that? Because we only got, 3 months, we're in the last of the third quarter, right? Yeah, last quarter, so we only got one quarter to go. And do you think our fund balance can withstand to that, because it'd be, it's,
I do, and this is a necessity. I know I used to do federal grants, and I obviously am no expert in this, but they would send me in to do this type of review anyway. And when I found things were out of compliance, that we were not allowed to give grants to these people unless they had a plan to tell me how they were gonna fix it, their timeline, what they were gonna do. We cannot afford to lose our grants.
Commissioner Mann?
If the people, the local governments, and the states don't push back on unreasonable, unfunded mandates, this stuff will continue to happen, and we will go broke. We're on the road to that anyway without this. To me, it's worth pushing back, and I don't support it right now.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. Sure. I totally disagree with that comment. This is an accessibility issue for the county buildings. I've got a son that's in a wheelchair, so I understand some of the issues that he faces, and people have no idea. And that's only one type of disability. There's many, many more. These are things that the county should have been doing all along. They haven't. That's why we're at today. So I totally disagree with that comment.
Commissioner, I'm not talking about reasonable steps to help people with disabilities, but the height of a light switch or the pressure on the door, how do you measure stuff like that?
They actually make tools. I've got them in the office right now.
What was the dollar amount of the plan again?
The lowest bid was $59,475, and I'll defer to Mr. Smith. He's reviewed these at length and as to his recommendation.
I actually think the lowest bid is fine. They're equally qualified based on the package they submitted, and it seems like that's the highest.
I'll make that motion. Commissioner Hill made the motion, second I heard Commissioner Brown. Any further discussion?
Question on motion.
I won't say I'm in support of this, but something that really bothers me, you know, we get letters from the state for 2016, we know we need to act on them, we don't act on them, then we, at the last moment, we have to act on them. I think that's not what this commission needs to do. It sort of reminds me of when we gave everybody a pay raise to $47,000, and then found out we didn't have to. So we need to be more, we need to manage our system a little bit better, I think.
Okay, thank you for your comments on the motion. Duly seconded. Madam Clerk, call the roll. The motion is to go with the lowest bid that Director Smith suggested, which was the
$59,475.
$59,475.
Coming from fund balance.
Coming from fund balance, that's the motion. 17 ayes, 4 noes, motion passes.
Chairman, one last item. With all due respect, going back to one of the comments that Mr. Johnson just made, very reasonable comment, we can make amendments. We can make amendments. And just to touch briefly on the statement I made earlier tonight, we did prioritize projects, Mr. Johnson, back in 2014. Number one project was the health department. Number two project, if we could secure the funding, was the EOC. Because in time of an emergency, that facility can mean the difference between life and death. You have to have a command center that's modern and up to date. One where all of the responders can come together and communicate as they manage that scene, whether it be fire, flood, wind, whatever. You've got to have those capabilities. I wasn't here in '98. Some of you were. You saw how difficult it was to operate out of the facility that we have now. 911 building does have 2,000 square feet over there that would accommodate. We've had the architects look at that, give us the best estimates possible as to the cost of that project. This has been to committee. We've talked about it time and time again. We've made applications for other grants to be able to add that project, Mr. Lyons, to our list of success stories for this administration. And you're to be commended because at least this administration, unlike the 10 to 14 term, accomplished nothing. There is not one real large project, but you've got a number of them. We've got the health department that's nearing completion. We've got the building over on Holston, you know, the total remodel that we were able to do. And you wouldn't believe the positive comments that I'm getting from the citizens of how much better that is, especially with an election coming. It's going to be much safer for our citizens. It's going to allow citizens to come here and conduct their business in the trustee's office, the registrar's office, the clerk's office, without all of the problem that they had before. It was impossible. You've been through elections here. So it was a major plus. There's two major wins. This EOC is extremely important. Now, we've had discussion tonight, and the right to hear the resolution, or for the resolution to be presented for this community development block grant, was shot down at that point. But I think you've had time to think about it since then. And I would hope, with all due respect, that you would allow this resolution to be heard tonight at this meeting so that we can make that application. We spent a year trying to get across the threshold. We couldn't get there because the survey results was not what was allowed for that application. Mr. Smith and his team has worked diligently going out in the community to getting beyond that threshold, and he just achieved that. The moment that he achieved that result that would allow us the green light so that we could move forward is the day that we submitted the request to have this resolution drafted and brought to this committee, this commission. So that's $315,000 potential. We don't need to miss that. So, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I would hope that one member of this body would allow a motion or bring forth a motion that would allow this resolution to be presented here tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question before you sit down. You talked about priorities tonight. Where is your priority on the new school in Carter County? You've mentioned all these other things. You never mentioned
I'll be glad to, if you allow me to expand. In 2010, I was the first. Dr. Ward, correct me if I'm wrong. Am I not the first person that asked the commission then to put together a capital improvements plan to be able to address the aged schools in this community? I was the first. It was my recommendation at the time to hire an independent consultant outside the area to come in and do that work for us because, Mr. Peters, you know, whether we will admit it or not, all of us, mayor included, have some form of bias. Some form of bias. We did put that out for bids, and we had bids submitted. Is that not correct, Mr. Ward? Those were at a tune of, one of them was about $80,000, the other was over $100,000. We had those representatives come in. They gave detailed presentations as to what they would do, how they would do that construct, and how they would put together that capital improvements plan. Because to do that, and to do it properly, we have to look at all of the schools in this county. We have to look at the entire age of these schools. We've got to look also at the trends that are being established. Just because I went to Range School and my children went to Range School, at no point in time, yeah, it broke my heart to see that school closed. But you know, when Mr. McMahon, we decided, the school board collectively decided they couldn't pay that kind of money. We couldn't pay an independent professional consultant to come in this county and help us with that major issue. And keep in mind, when you start talking about New Lakeland Elementary, with the size and age and condition, it needs attention. There are other schools in this county that needs attention. We can't wait until the last minute for this to happen. So we elected not to do that plan. The school system put together the plan of their own. Mr. McMahon, who was a very capable individual, put that plan together. And you know, once that plan was released, the action that was taken immediately, and there's been no other action since, it hit the shelf, was to close Range School. I didn't fight it because the student ratio, teacher ratio at that time for Range School was 9-to-1. And yeah, it broke my heart to see that school closed. It breaks my heart now when I drive by it every day to see that school sitting there vacant. But a good business decision was that it had to be shut down. And as a result, when we moved the majority of those students to Central, then we realized that Central wouldn't accommodate them. So guess what we did? We sold that school for about $100,000, and we went over there and spent well over $1 million to build the addition to accommodate. So, Mr. Peters, it takes a well thought out, long range plan to be able to properly address these schools without breaking the backs of the taxpayers in this county.
Mr. Mayor, I've seen that plan, and that's the most ridiculous thing that ever hit this county.
Mr. Peters, let me finish. You asked me a question. I'm not interrupting you. Just in 13, we got on a bandwagon that we had to have a brand new school in the Stony Creek community. Now let's get it straight. Stony Creek community. And I agree, we need new facilities. I would support it 100%. But what did we do? We took a knee-jerk reaction. We bought a 7-acre piece of property to build this school. It was in the flight pattern of the airport. It was in a flood zone. It was by side a beer joint. Let me finish. That's great. Let's do it. But we bought that. We paid $200,000 for that piece of property. Not this commission, but the commission authorized the school board to buy that piece of property. We made all kinds of mistakes in that piece of property. That piece of property is set on the market forever and a day. We paid full price, no contingencies. Now, I've got 20 years in real estate, and I know that you don't do that. I don't care who you are. Fortunately, the school board realized that that plan over time was not a good plan, and they elected to sell that piece of property.
That plan right there was fixed stone.
And
the mayor is the very person who actually got the committee that he was associated with, through an email, told one of his representatives to come down to a workshop, do a presentation, throw water on the project, and kill it. Right. Now,
first of all, wait just a minute, Mr. Chairman, let me finish my presentation, and then Mr. Ward can say whatever he wants.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. I would like to object. This is not on the agenda, and we're going down rabbit trails, and people are venting stuff that they've been harboring for apparently years, and we're taking up agenda time to deal with this, and I think we need to clear it out.
If I could say one thing, the property up there would have been a great piece of property that he had alluded to earlier about industrial property. In election year, it's good to talk about trying to buy property and bring jobs in here. That would have been a perfect piece of property.
Right, and I brought it up to try to get the county to buy it for that reason. And it was voted down.
Mayor, please.
Well, if I can, sir, I have too many interruptions. I'm not interrupting these guys. Mr. Peters was absolutely correct, Dr. Ward. He wanted the Carter County Commission to pay $250,000 for a piece of property that the school board paid $200,000 for. Now, I was at that auction because I was concerned. And I am so proud that the county, with the buyer's commission and the fact that we had 3 people there that were interested in property bidding for it, the school board just did get their money back. And I'm glad. That's a good thing. But to cut to the chase, I'm all for it. But until we get a capital improvements plan where it's put together by independent, non-biased authorities, professionals, to help us determine the actual needs of this county, how could any of you support that? How could any of you? I couldn't. And I've told Dr. Ward, if you get that plan in place and it shows that on this day, 5 years from today, we need this new elementary school, I will be the first to support building that school. But you got to have a plan. Without the plan, it can turn out to be a worse catastrophe, much worse than what we've got across the street. Carter County taxpayer cannot afford that. Thank you.
I'd like to mention one thing. Yes, sir. The mayor just mentioned that one of the reasons against the land up there was it was in the flat at the airport. I would challenge anybody here to go up there and sit at United High School every day and watch planes come directly over that 300 feet over that high school. It is sitting directly in the flight path of that airport. So that argument won't go off.
Mr. Lyons, did you have a comment?
I was just going to ask the chair, so we think like a point of order. We get back to this.
Yes, absolutely. Before we move through the committee reports, can we take 5 minutes? I think everybody just needs to go to their respective corners, lift up a prayer.
It's amazing.
Just give us just a minute here. We'll begin again. Smith is trying to control, making sure we don't get feedback. Commissioner Lewis?
Mr. Chairman, if we ever get a motion, mayor, a proposal about that grant money, he can go bring it up, and we got off on the back track.
Yeah, we defeated suspending the rule and adding it to the agenda. If you want to bring it back up.
Well, he already does, I don't remember, nobody making a motion on it. But I'm making a motion that we, let him apply for that grant.
Well, I think there's a couple of procedures that we have to walk through before you can actually make that motion. The attorney tells me we have to reconsider, and that will have to be somebody on the prevailing side that defeated the motion. So
What about again now? Why did he make that tonight? We still want to vote on it.
well, yeah, as I said, there's a couple of procedures that we have to walk through. So Attorney Martin, you want to address those?
Sure. First of all, there would have to be a motion to reconsider that vote, not allow me to be put on the agenda. That motion can only be made by somebody on the prevailing side. If you didn't have that rule, someone didn't get their way, could just repeatedly bring up the same thing again. So somebody who voted against putting it on the agenda could be able to make a motion to reconsider. That passes by majority vote. Then you have to have 2/3 vote to set the rules aside to consider it. Then you have to have majority vote to approve the resolution. Clear?
No. Had you ever get vote on it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's on the agenda.
Correct, and it never was on the agenda, so it can't be considered.
It was on the agenda.
No, sir.
They didn't recognize it on the agenda. Right.
So with that question answered, and with Commissioner Lewis's desire, is there
I make a motion, we reconsider this, bring it up again for a vote.
You can't. We're out of order. Because you voted for it. It has to be somebody that voted against it.
I don't remember if I voted for it against it.
So anyone on the voting against the motion, if you want to bring it back up, you'll have to be the party that brings it to the floor.
Mr. Chair, I was on the opposing vote. And I do place before the motion that we bring it back up. And we take a vote to see if it does.
So you need a majority vote.
So it takes the majority to reconsider it on the floor again for consideration.
Correct.
Is there a second? Anybody can second. Commissioner Lewis. Okay, the vote is to reconsider the vote.
Waivers on
Commissioner Lyons.
I think he just used the
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion about what we're doing or any questions you want to ask?
Why they do. Basic reason is that I think that the way that it is written, it's real negative. Number one, he should be allowed to submit for any grant that could be available. But the language that is written in is if it's approved, then it goes through our cycle of our committees, all the way to the finance committee, to see if we have the funds to be able to do it. But the way that it's written here, it's not right off bat, it names, I'm uncomfortable with saying, well, it's a $500,000 structure. Who the heck come up with that number? It wasn't a general contractor. It wasn't an architect. So that's why we go through the vetting process through our committee to find this out. I wouldn't be comfortable to be applying for it, but, it's a big proposal. But allowing it to go for it, but we're not obligating ourselves in any form or fashion until it goes through the committee process to see if we have the capabilities.
And let me add this too, if you actually get it to where you're actually considering the merits of the resolution, it can be amended. So if you have an issue with the language in here about will be provided, that can be amended to say will be provided upon acceptance of the grant. Or the mayor will have the authority to sign all contracts and documents to implement the project once grant funds are accepted and approved or something. To where there's some language in here that says we got to come back again to get the final approval. Because the way it's worded, it doesn't say that.
I understand that, but not go in there and apply and say, if we're accepted, it's gonna be an automatic. Well, you automatically right there already know, it's $192,000. Where are you gonna get it?
But first you gotta get it on the agenda, then you can amend it.
I understand.
So the motion is to reconsider, it's been made and seconded. Commissioner Von Cannon, you have a comment before we move to vote?
I think the wording is such that you don't ever know what's going to develop in a project. For example, if I might work with you just a little bit. We tonight adopted a resolution to affirm the compliance with the 3-star program. Did we not? Yeah. The 3-star program is useless without the grant program. It's useless. It has no bearing on anything as far as getting money from the state unless you can comply with these. Number one, you've got to comply with your debt management policies. You have to show physical strength and efficiency before you can even get the 3-star program. But you cannot do a thing on loans and grants without this. You did the right thing with this. How do I know? 28 years ago, I was in Nashville, Ed Ray McWhorter awarded this county the first 3-star award program, and I was the guy there. Without the grant program, this is useless. Totally useless. And here's the rest of the story. Here's the rest of the story. That the man that signs off on the grant programs is not the city, it's not the city council, it is the county mayor only. So, if you're talking about Carter County tomorrow, forget it. Without the grant program, that does not, it's a moot point. It's an absolutely moot point. Let's say somebody came in and bought the Matheson property in the city, in Carter County tomorrow's bailiwick. Who writes the grant to pay for it if somebody buys it? The grant program comes to the county mayor. If they wanted, if a company wanted an access road to a piece of property that we might, let's say we found one that would be almost impossible, but that grant program is supplemented also with TVA money, DOT money, and block grant money. So your $100 and some thousand you keep bringing up might not be that, because you might pick up TVA money, you can pick up money from ARC, Appalachian Regional Commission. Without the grant program, what you just voted on is useless.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to reconsider. Unless there is another, Commissioner Grunstead?
I have a policy that I don't speak of unless I can add to a conversation, and I'm going to try to do that. I didn't speak up the first time this come up. Do I think that this should have went through committee first? Yes, I do. Do I think that it needed to go through building and grounds directly? No, I don't. Building and grounds has talked about this and talked about this and talked about this. We talked about this when we first got elected, I'm going to say 4 years ago. This is something that needs to be looked at. This is a project that is on the list. Does it need to go through budget? Of course it does. Anything that has money needs to go through the budget, especially when you're talking $507,000 total cost, estimated cost. But at the same time, when is the deadline to apply for this grant? Mr. Mayor, do you have any idea?
Mr. Lance Lauer, in the last correspondence that I had, he requested that I immediately get this resolution on this month's agenda, and I complied. He is the expert. They're the people that actually write the grants for us. They do the administration of the grants. So I have to defer to him, and I did everything that I could do to comply. Immediately upon that email, I advanced it to County Attorney Hardin, at which time I copied Chairman Acuff on and asked him to prepare the resolution to have it on this month's agenda. At no point in time that I even fathomed that there would be an objection to a matter that had already been approved by this committee not once but twice before with even additional program. We have never turned down monies, especially when we're talking about $300,000+. Now, come on, folks. So, if an error was made, it's been made, but it was done through the direction that was given to us by the administrator. They're the professional, and we should not question those folks.
With that being said, you know, I would hate to see a grant on something that this commission has worked so hard to accomplish go to waste. Do I agree with the way that the resolution is worded to go ahead and say we will be responsible for this amount of money? No, I don't. Do I think that that amount of money should go through proper channels in the budget? Yes, I do. You know, I would like to see us discuss this motion, discuss this resolution, discuss amending the resolution to see this grant applied for. If it becomes an issue fund-wise later on, we try. And that is the only thing as chairman of the Building and Grounds that I would like to see partial. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnston. Okay, the motion is to reconsider. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Reconsider the resolution. 18 ayes, 3 noes, so we will reconsider. The second motion that needs to be made is to suspend the rules so that we can reconsider the vote or the resolution. So we have to suspend our rules because this violates Rule 7, and that has to be a 3/4 vote.
Move to suspend, 2/3.
2/3? Oh, yeah, 2/3, thanks. It's getting late. Move to suspend by Commissioner Hill, second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All right, vote to suspend. Yea or no? Madam Clerk? Seventeen ayes, 4 noes. Suspend the rules. Now to consider the resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we give the mayor authority to apply for this grant.
I'll say.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Lewis, second by Commissioner Brown.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to include the language that Mr. Martin described just a little bit ago.
You want to repeat that?
Well, it's up to you all, but I mean, under the first, be it further resolved, you could add, the board understands that matching funds for the project in the amount of $192,903.80 will be provided by Carter County if grant funds are awarded and accepted. And that way, if you don't accept the grant, then you're not obligated to provide anything. That's just one single suggestion.
Okay, is that a friendly amendment, Commissioner Lewis?
Yeah, I'll accept that.
Okay, Commissioner Brown? All right. All right, do we need to repeat that, or everybody knows what we're voting on?
We got it.
Any further discussion, questions? Okay.
State the rewording, just state the rewording after it gets written down.
Okay. You want to state that?
Yes, so
hang on just a minute so you know what you're
after the first, be it further resolved on resolution, about 2/3 down the page. The board understands that matching funds for the project in the amount of $192,983.80 will be provided by Carter County if the grant funds are awarded and accepted by the full county commission.
What if we don't get the total amount? We still obligated to give that?
I said if the grant funds are,
It sounds like you lost.
it says if the grant funds are awarded and accepted, you all have to accept the funds. I mean, the problem is, this is an estimated cost, and we don't know how much is gonna be left over from what's awarded and what the final cost will be. So there's just no way, I can have a resolution or I can change it in a way that says, if the grant funds are awarded, it has to come back before this commission to be accepted. At that point, you can determine the amount of the matching funds. I mean, they're only going to give you a certain percentage, and we just don't know the full total cost. I mean, it's just an estimate. So we can't give you hard numbers on that.
Is that satisfactory, Commissioner Meehan?
How does the finance chairman, director feel about that?
I'm fine with it. Grants typically have a grant match percent, so I'm not concerned that if we get less of a grant that we're going to be responsible for the full amount, because typically it will have 20% match, 30% match, so that will come with whatever we're awarded.
Everybody satisfied? Okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll. Very good, all ayes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may, thank you, Commission. There is hope. There is hope.
Thanks. Okay, let's move into committee reports. Commissioner Garland, Agriculture.
I'll leave it there. So, first of all, was a little too shallow for my taste.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to apologize for being late for coming in here. I had a priority to take care of. Just wanted to mention that.
Who won?
We won. It was 17-16. It was a hard fought for 6 and 7-year-olds. Really good ball game. And fun to coach. But agriculture meeting, we met last week. There was only about a handful of us there. Only 2 voting members, so we didn't really, weren't able to take care of any business. Emily did a great job with the minutes. I'm going to kind of go over those. I want to thank Krista for getting those out to everybody, because I didn't have a chance to get them in there. Been working on the Folsom House, done a great job. Pretty much everything is complete there. They're still working on a few things, but all looks good. We got to walk around, take a look at it. The split system, 2 units in there, doing a great job. The cold weather we had in January, they were installed. They didn't, we talked to Emily and Melissa, and they did just fine for that upstairs. New furniture, it's in the works, supposed to be here, I think, in April. They showed us some drawings and things like that, and everything looked pretty good. So that office is really taken off, and they'd be happy if you guys, anybody wants to go over there, take a look. Good bunch to work with. They're always happy when people come over. The fireman position, we talked about that just for a minute. We couldn't recommend Mr. Knight for that because there was not enough to vote. But hopefully Mr. Meehan will take care of that here shortly. But certainly, a good candidate for that position. Serves on the Soil Conservation District now, I think, as chairman. Longtime farmer in this county, so there shouldn't be any problem with him. They did mention Extension Month, which is in March. They did ask that I talked to the chairman, Dr. Acuff, to be on the agenda for next month. I think they want to present, kind of promote what they're working on and show that off. I think they did have some plans to maybe set up some displays at some local restaurants, a possible open house if they get the furniture in and everything ready there. So we'll present that here shortly. Mr. Meehan, Kathleen, the extension, the ag agent, she presented all kinds of stuff. And this thing's full of information. Look over it because there's a lot of programs that they cover. She's hosting programs. The viticulture, there's been a lot of folks showing interest in it, and that is the cultivation of grapes. So apparently there's kind of a demand for that. There's some people have an interest in possibly moving into the county and maybe starting a vineyard. Don't know for sure. She also does pesticide certification. So any farmers or landscape places like that, she does offer that and is certified. On the back right there, I thought was a great stat that she presented that Carter County is second behind Greene County in beef cattle for the upper 8 counties of Tennessee, which I was surprised to hear that, but certainly happy about that. She's got a radio show on Saturday mornings, or is part of a radio show, WBEJ. Wasn't aware of that, but you can listen to her early in the morning. This is another thing with the EMA office, the disaster animal relief training. That's something.
Disaster animal response team.
They've got relief training, but either way, but it's, I guess in case of a disaster, they have a team in place to come in, move animals, livestock, things like that.
That's what we're trying to do. We do not have it in place at this time.
Right. We'll work on that. And Kathleen, she's great, and I'm sure we'll be happy with you on that. Vegetable trial is something that I guess UT is working on and offering. You get a few, there's different types of seeds. They want you to start those seeds, kind of, watch those grow, report on those, things like that. Any questions like that, or if you have an interest, go see them. They're really helpful. Miss Vicki was not there. Move on down. Melissa Chick Chain Program. I think they've doubled students in the second year. They're raising chicks to sell at an auction, and that's in, I believe, at the fair, possibly around that time. Local businesses helping them out as well, so that's good. And second weekend in August, I've got that there. And they mentioned actually having this auction on the courthouse lawn. I think that's something that they've done in years past and they had an interest in. So, if that comes about, maybe we can work on that and see where that goes. Should be exciting. Great numbers from 4-H. Emily was able to go to the winter fair that they had at TCAT over there. It was a great program, a lot of participation through the students. 890 students, 4th and 10th grade, prepared and presented a speech related to healthy living, which I thought was great. 890 kids, that's pretty good if you can get them up speaking in front of classes, things like that. A couple of them moved on to regionals, I think, and there's 3 of them that maybe still be going. 570 students, 4th grades, entered the 4-H poster contest, and some really good submissions that I saw myself. Let's see. 3 supposed to represent 4-H Congress. I don't have a lot of information on that, so I couldn't tell you much, but it sounds like a good thing anyway. 4-H Summer Camp, got dates on that, June 18th through 22nd through 4th and 6th grade, July 13th, 7th and 8th. And the forestry team, they're still working and preparing for their national competition. I believe that's in the summer and in West Virginia, so of course continue to support those guys. We'll mention TWRA, I think licenses, they go on sale for this coming year, for 2018. I think your existing license is good through this month, through the 28th of this month. The 250K tree day, I mentioned that the last time. That's still going on, where you can apply, or I guess you can buy or offer a donation to get some saplings. The dates that they will be there, the 23rd, which is on a Friday, next Friday, and the 24th is supposed to be the day that you actually put the trees in the ground. That's the goal, 250,000 trees in Tennessee for one day. So and they'd be happy to, if anybody would like to be part of that, volunteer, go down there and talk to some folks, help hand out trees. They would be happy to do that as well. Miss Vicki, remember her, Vicki, her husband has had a pretty serious illness and an unexpected illness, so she's kind of been in and out of the office. A pretty serious deal there. So remember those guys. I believe that's all I've got for that. Any questions from you guys?
Yeah, if you know about this 4 weeks ago, I used to have to do all these young men down in Greenville. If anybody in here got 8 kids, I guess, what, up to 10-year-old, it'd be a good investment to send them down to the 4-H camp. They get a lot out of it.
Yeah, 4th and 6th grade, and then 7th and 8th. And they also, they take donations and they have scholarships. It takes a while to send those kids down there. So, if anybody's got some deep pockets and want to help them out, they'd be happy to have you do that. I think there's something in the works too for the Tractor Supply, the 4-H Clovers, where they take up donations. So that should be in the works pretty soon. That's all I got for that. Anybody else?
Also, I was gonna say, I went on that 250K website, about 20 trees, it's pretty easy, pretty cool thing, if y'all wanna check it out.
Yeah, it is easy to do. You can buy them to 100, I think, something like that. And they're just gonna come probably about this big. It's not gonna come with a root ball or anything like that.
I'll be selling trees, think I'm kidding.
But that's something we want to promote too, you know. But the ladies over there, I compliment them all the time. They're really doing a great job, really active, great programs. They got 1,200 or so kids in the 4-H program, which I think is phenomenal. So we'll continue to work with those guys. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
I'm going to let Mr. Meehan take care of that.
Animal shelter, Commissioner.
You should have your animal shelter board meeting minutes from January. We were behind a little bit because of the holiday and we had our meeting late this month, so next month you'll have up-to-date minutes. I've got one thing to bring up. I've received this email, or Krista did, late this afternoon. I just got it, so. You know, we had the comptroller's report that came out a couple months ago, and there were several findings on it from 2016 back, and there were several findings on that from the comptroller's office. One of the findings was a discrepancy between money owed, that the comptroller's office felt like money was owed from the Friends group to the shelter for different things that had went on. And it was $9,000, I don't know the exact
It was
number.
$9,236 is what the comptroller says the Friends Group owes us. This email from Mike Barnett over the Friends Group says he has a check ready to give me for $7,717.38. I feel if we accept this, we're not saying we accept it in full. However, the auditors have told me they really need me to tell them what our intentions are. Do we plan on asking for the remainder of the funds that the comptroller's office says was appropriated to the Friends Group and to the county? Are we going to write off the remainder as uncollectible and just call it good there? And I don't really feel I have the authority to say, I think that's up to you all, what you want to do. So I kind of need some direction so I can tell the comptrollers, you know, who are we going to ask for any Hardin to draft a letter and request remaining funds? Do you just want to write it off as uncollectible and move on? I don't think I have the authority to say.
How much was
Now-
the check?
$7,770.
They owe us about $2 more, that's what you're talking about.
They owe us $1,500.
In this email, it says, there may be more money to come from our account, but until we get medical records back from the mayor's office and we are not able to break down with Dr. Ashley as to what was beyond our normal vetting requirements, this amount is in question. So they're not saying that they're not going to pay the rest of it, they're just saying they don't have the proper information to see what they owe the rest of it. So I spoke to Mr. Hardin, and I guess you can explain whether we need to vote on this.
Well, certainly, I mean, you have a person here essentially donating, or whatever you want to call it, reconciling, but they would make a check for $7,717.38 that would need to be accepted by the commission. So I wouldn't think that you would want to reject it. It doesn't commit you to not going after the rest of it. You're not acknowledging, you know, this is full payment. But I think that report suggested that the county pursue whatever means we had to attempt to collect this shortfall. So if you have, you know, the biggest chunk of it offered back to you, I don't know why you would say no.
Commissioner Lyons.
I make a motion that we accept the
$717.38.
Second, Commissioner Brown. Any further questions, discussions?
Is this from the Friends of the
Friends of the Shelter.
Friends, and there's some more money there too, right?
There's $1,500, but they're saying, they're questioning whether they owe that, and they don't have the proper documentation to tell them whether they owe it or not. This is the only item on the comptroller's list that we've not addressed. We had a meeting with the state auditors at the shelter week before last, and went over all the comptroller's findings with them. And they seemed to be really pleased on what we had done so far to correct all the items in the comptroller's report. We've got all of them corrected. But this here was hanging out there, the $9,000. So that's what they've offered. And they're not saying they won't give it the rest of it. It's just that they don't have the medical records and stuff to verify what they owe.
Chris, will this go in the fund for them or in the general fund?
It will go, it's in the general fund, it is designated for the animal shelter.
But it'll be amendment in the budget for that amendment there, right?
This won't automatically add it back to their budget. This will go like into their donations. And then if they want to use those donations, they can do an amendment later on, yes.
And the rest of it would be commissioners, if they got the records back before they would use the documents to calculate. Right. Well, my question is, Mr. Mayor, why have you got medical records to the animal shelter since you cleared the ends of it?
Sir, I have an open records request in the finance department for medical records. If I had tons of medical records, why would I have an open request that was made months ago that's never been fulfilled?
And that's like, do you have them?
I do not have those records. If I had them, I wouldn't have made an official request to the finance department to get those records. It don't make sense.
Mr. Mayor, I brought you those records that you requested. And I had you sign a form that I had brought you the records. You looked through the records after you had signed the form and told me that those records were not adequate. That wasn't everything you wanted, but it was everything that you requested. Then you told me that it wasn't. You tore up where you had signed the paper that I gave you, verifying that I had given you them. Then you tore it up, threw it in the garbage can. And I still have those records. You just didn't accept them.
Mr. Peters, the records that you brought to me did not include the medical records that were requested.
They included everything that you had requested.
No, sir. If they had, I would have accepted them.
Did you sit down and read those when I gave them to you?
Yes, sir. I scanned them.
I was only there 5 minutes. I don't know how you read them, a stack of records that deep in 5 minutes, but maybe you read faster than I can.
Let's go ahead and vote. This is a matter we need to clear up a little bit later. Let's just get this vote out of the way. $7,717.38 from the Friends Group. So the motion's been made and seconded. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please. Ayes, 2 noes. Motion passes.
Okay, I only have one other thing. It was brought up tonight about animal control. We did suspend, the board suspended last week, animal control after hours. We still have it during the regular working hours. But the reason we had to suspend it is because Freddie, who is the animal control officer, he's paid by the city, but it's taken out of what the city gives us. He was sick last week, and he couldn't go out. Well, Shannon and one of the other girls that works down there was going out of the night on calls about vicious dogs and stuff, And I suggested to the board that they not do that, because I feel like it's putting the county in a liability. They have no way to protect themselves. And going forward, I was just informed by the sheriff that Monday, we will have a county animal control officer through the sheriff's department. We have the truck, it's lettered, they have the equipment, we have the process for them to bring the animals to the animal shelter, so that'll be taken care of after Monday.
And we're gonna make several mistakes in the process.
And we have, we set a limit on what we could take in, what we felt like our staff could handle at the shelter. And so that's why sometimes animals may get turned away. And we also voted, we do not take feral cats because there's nothing we can do with them. Nobody will have them. All we do is the county ends up having them cut down, because that's all you can do with them. But that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Cole, budget?
Chairman, I'm asking the vice chair to give the report tonight. Thank you.
Up here again. Okay. Sandra usually does a great job. I'll try to get through this. Several items right here. First one, to approve November donations of $11,240, December donations of $1,270, January donations of $397.96, and numerous product donations made to the animal shelter. I'll put that in
I'll make a
front.
motion, we accept.
I'll say.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Madam Clerk, call the roll. All right, Commissioner Truitt?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. That's all right. All ayes, thank you.
Next item, to approve General Fund 101, Amendment Number 8, for a total of $20,998.42, with 5 items and $4,900 coming from fund balance. And I'll put that in the form of a motion. Second.
For a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Cole. Are there questions?
Ms. Garland, would you speak up a little more? I can't hear you somehow.
Mr. Garner, yes.
Commissioner Lewis, Commissioner Miller?
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Miller.
20 ayes, 1 nay, motion passes.
Next item, to approve Highway Amendment Number 5 for a total of $139,871.77, with 2 items and nothing coming from fund balance.
Second from Commissioner Gill. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll. Commissioner Peters? Commissioner Peters?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. All ayes, thank you.
Next item, to approve General Purpose School Fund 141, Amendment Number 8, for $322,379.92, with 3 items and nothing coming from the school's fund balance. I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second, Commissioner Davis. Any questions, Commissioner?
On this item number 3, textbook, 15,000 functional equipment. Can't tell the difference in that.
I didn't bring the line item up here with me. I'm not sure which one.
I'm not sure, Ross. This is reallocating within your vocational, so like your CTE kind of program, and they needed more money in their instructional equipment, and they took that money out of their textbook line.
Okay, so you take it out of textbooks and put it in.
That gets you what you want to know?
Any other questions? Madam Clerk, call the roll. All up or one? All of us, thank you.
I think I'm right here. To approve general purpose school fund 141, amendment number 9 for $163,746. 2 items and nothing from schools fund balance.
Second. Mr. Ward. Any discussion, questions? Seeing, hearing none, Madam Clerk. All of us, thank you.
And the last one, to approve Federal Projects Fund 142, amendment number 3 for $90,478.56. 3 items and nothing from fund balance.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Dees. Any questions? Madam Clerk? Mr. Brown and Commissioner Lewis, y'all want to confirm that? I'm not voting. All of us, thank you.
One more item, or one more thing to mention right here. The budget meeting for next month has been moved from the Monday to the previous Thursday, the prior Thursday. It'll be March 8th, still at 6 o'clock. A few of us going down to Nashville. So.
What day is it?
It's March the 8th, Thursday, 6 o'clock. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. Building and Grounds, Commissioner Gronstadt.
I feel like I've talked a lot more than what I usually talk, so I'll just go over the minutes real quick. The Chancery Court Reclamation Audio System, thank you all for dealing with that. Hopefully we can get the system in pretty quick and eliminate a lot of these feedback issues. County Archives, some questions have been asked about that at one of the last meetings. We're waiting on some numbers from the up-to-date numbers in the fund, and then
How are you? Welcome.
we're waiting for up-to-date numbers on the fund to see where that's at, and also to hear back from Scott Bowers. He's getting us copies of stuff that he's actually presented to us before. That way we have that on hand. Courthouse security project is moving forward. We're still waiting. We're still working with Reedy Insights. We're waiting for them to be complete. I know that that's ongoing. We discussed a little bit about if you remember, the 15-year lease on the property that was owned by TDOT. It's 28 plus or minus acres. There was some items that TDOT had asked that we do in order to accept that property. And some of those items were a survey, and then also to reallocate some fencing along Highway 67. We were able to get some estimates of those costs, and we had some questions. We referred that to the county attorney, and we're waiting on some information from the county attorney that we'll probably have at the next meeting. I like to get answers. Good, that's good. No, I do say thank you to Ms. Burton, thank you to our county attorney. They put up a lot with a lot, especially to me. I send them emails all the time. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you all.
Mr. Blankline,
Sir.
can you give me an update on this Whitehead property back here?
On the Whitehead property? Yes. If I had my notes with you, I could. We discussed it briefly. We discussed the price that they were asking for, and we'd actually had some research done. I can't remember.
I did the research. It wasn't on the agenda. It wasn't brought up at the meeting, but I had the research there. But just I did a title search on it, but we can talk about that next month too.
There's your answer.
I was ready.
That chairman forgot to put it on the agenda.
What you gonna tell me, in the water?
Don't Deb, because he done his part, I just forgot my part. So it will be on the agenda at the next meeting.
I think it's a good, I know it's a high, maybe, but you gotta look at the property and how close it is to the county. Our property.
Like I said, I will put it on the agenda, and if you're there, if I forget it, just remind me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I want to commend Mr. Isaiah tonight. He's talked more tonight than he has in 3 years. Done a good job.
Commissioner Board, Education and Financial Management.
Education meeting, we canceled it last month due to the fact that the weather, school was out, so we decided not to have it until all the way after Cloudland. I would like Dr. Ward, if you got anything you want to add to that, or you want to address anything?
No, I guess just, in the upcoming meeting in March, we need to get together and, tell you sort of what happened with, January. We want to take those people down since we're having it here.
Right.
Just like I said, what.
Our next meeting will be March the 5th at the courthouse. Finance management, we had 3 motions that were made during the meeting. The first one, we restructured the policies and procedures, went through and changed some things from wording. I'll let Krista speak to that if she wants to.
We basically just went through, there were some items in there that I felt like were kind of obsolete as far as when they do things now with our new system. There were also a few policies that have not been followed that I'm adamant we need to follow our policies. However, I don't think some of those policies were things we wanted to follow. A good example would be there was a rule that if anybody spent travel over $1,000, even though it's in their budget, 2 of 4 people, being myself, the mayor, the budget committee chairman, and the director of schools, had to approve those travels. I didn't feel that was appropriate. If it's in their budget, it's up to that office holder. So we removed things like that as well. There's no major changes, just little tweaks to try and make sure it was a good, sound policy.
Another motion that was brought before the board was salary study. You know, we talked about salary study over and over, and it's probably about time we get down to doing something about this. You know, I know the school system, they did a study on their employees, and now, you know, I don't know if Mr. Johnson wants a motion made, or...
Well, it's just, it came up over a year ago. I think the company that done surveys for the school board, of which their findings, the school board adopted, and they had set a program to bring the ones that were efficient in their salaries, to bring them in line over a period of time. And I know that time, us as commissioners, we had set in the conference with them to see what all was involved. And the reason why I brought it back again is because we're coming back up into budget period again. And then we all have on our minds and everything else is our employees that we're responsible for. And we still sit there kicking the can with no result. And I brought it up for the issue that we come in and start doing surveys, have a firm as such as the company that done it for the school board, to do it for our county and our county employees, to see where we stand and put our plan together before it does not come up with a burden at the end of your budget. Because everything that's come up in the past 90 days, it says, oh, we can't do it because we don't have for employees. Well, if you think about it, you can give them the raise the very first cut of the money, regardless what you do during the year, and then make the rest of it do. But that's not the right way. It is, we need to set either a slide scale, a step scale, whatever for all of our employees, where you don't have to deal with that issue every time you turn around and this changes. It's just it works great for the sheriff's department, take it in. When I was employed there before retired, it worked fine. You knew exactly what it was going to be. School board does it, and there's no reason why the rest of our employees can't be handled that way. So I think it should be rehashed, brought back up, discussed, beat the whatever, but taken action.
Any more discussion? Seeing no more discussion, if you get your minutes, if you looked at them, everything else was in the minutes, so just make sure you read your minutes. Thank you.
Commissioner Ford, and Commissioner Johnson, is this an item that you want on a future agenda? We had talked about placing it on this agenda to have an open discussion, but I think we would all be better served if we waited and did it at next month's meeting for a hash out, because we're going to do a salary statement. Is that the feeling of the commission?
You won't have no interest till you come down to the very end, and you're gonna sit there with your thumb in your mouth saying, well, I guess we're gonna give the employees a raise.
Commissioner Biggs. Yeah, I agree, we cut this off, we was gonna do it, and, but we need to find out from the school system what it costs them to have this done, and then go from there. We do need to have an idea of what we need to pay employees to keep them. So if that was about 22,000, I would like to see put it through a committee or something.
Okay. I would assume
How much do you say?
$22,000.
20,000, but
I think the county can be cheaper because it's a smaller group. Maybe not, you don't.
Would we want to refer this back to the budget committee? Is that the will of the commission?
I mean, don't we need a bid?
well, yeah, there'll have to be a bid and other things that have to be let. We would have to get Krista involved, but I would imagine if Chairman Carr would entertain to put it on the agenda for this coming March budget committee.
It's too late to have us in this budget.
Yeah, no, this
I'd like to ask Mr. Ward, was you all satisfied with what you received from this study?
Very satisfied, and that Mr. Roberts did a very, very thorough job. It's not only he goes from department to department, and he talks to individuals, like in maintenance, he talks with electricians, plumbers. He did a very thorough job and kept feeding us information. Basically, I think the end results that come out of ours was it was somewhere around 5%, 5-6% to get our employees up into a pay scale that would be not the highest, not the lowest in the surrounding areas, but sort of in the medium. It was very good information that helped us.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Professional services, we obtained a estimate. It was not a bid process at the time, and it would just require an updated bid. The county commission had those bids. They got them first. Dr. Ward was in that meeting when the county commission or budget committee decided not to enter into that agreement. I had secured the bid for school system and presented to Dr. Ward, and he acted upon it along with school board. So it's a simple matter to get an updated estimate.
Thank you, Mayor. I will throw out one caution that Krista Bird brought up with financial management. Just because we have a scale and want to implement that countywide, elected officials over the department still have discretion. So it will really have to be a bond. There's no reason to spend $20,000 if everybody is going to skirt the process. Just editorial on my part. Thank you.
That's all my inspection has.
Health and welfare, Commissioner Holder.
We covered the couple of the resolutions tonight, the 3-star grant and the Medicare rates. The only other thing that I'd like to bring up is we did have a lady come in, Lisa Lyons from Kids Like Us, and she's doing a marvelous job with special needs kids. They've got a location now on Robeson Drive, and she needs help financially and other people to work with those kids. So if you got time, I would recommend that you go down there or go look at their web page. been a lot of
Would you
information.
care to give her my contact information? I'd be glad to send her outside agency budget request.
Okay,
I don't know that she get funded, but she would be more than welcome to do one.
okay, I'll send them to her. But they're doing a wonderful job down there with some special needs folks, kids and adults alike, teaching them life skills that they don't, to make it in life, if they don't get in school. She's getting a lot of folks from around the entire region, and they've already outgrown the location that they're in.
Thank you for that. Landfill, Commissioner Reeves?
Since the fire at the demolition landfill, Director Lyons has been very busy, as you can expect. He's still working with the insurance adjusters. He's purchasing items necessary to keep the landfill going, operating, and of course that with all of his other duties. He's been searching for a roll-off truck and a front-loader truck. And at this time, purchasing trucks is the priority. As of today, the trucks that he has been using are down. So the trucks are not available. And this county cannot afford to not have a way to dispose of trash. Recently, Mr. Larry Beavers, a heavy equipment dealer, informed the committee members about truck cost and life expectancy of new versus used equipment. It's very informative. And one thing I'm glad to report that we have received the permit from the state for the air curtain destructor, and that will be used to dispose of brush. And as soon as Director Lyons obtains his certification for opacity testing, he will purchase that destructor. Household hazard waste day is May 13th at the recycling center. And I've asked Director Lyons if he will to bring you up to date on things that he's been doing and what's necessary.
Guys, we've been pretty busy since the fire, just trying to meet with a lot of adjusters from the insurance. Looking at trucks, trying to get some equipment put back in place to keep our daily operation going. Friday, our roll-off truck dropped an injector in the engine, so we were down a roll-off truck. We don't have a roll-off truck now. Today, the front wheel came off the front load truck. We do cardboard, so it's down. We have no trucks now to operate. Parts are ordered. It's going to take time to get them here, so just have people bear with us, and all I ask.
Hey, Mr. Lyons?
Yes, sir.
What happened to that deal that you go about this video out of Virginia? This man came to us and told us, we're gonna have one again for about 2 weeks.
He has sent me pictures of it. I was going to go up Monday to look at it, but they was closed. So the later part of this week, I plan on going up to look at the truck and drive.
You gonna be no danger of you selling somebody else?
There's always that chance. Anywhere you, I went to Nashville last week and looked at two. There's always that chance you take with them selling before you get back to buying a used vehicle.
I understood he was gonna hold this until you came look at it. I didn't know.
They actually haven't got the trade finalized yet with, so it's still at the place that owns it.
They still have bought the new yet?
They haven't delivered the new one yet, so they still have the old one sitting there. And also, City of Johnson City's got two trucks I'm gonna go look at. That is that style truck that we use. They're $40,000 right now in Gulfdale, and there's one of them go up every day.
Is that the roll-off?
That's the front.
Have the insurance companies now cleared everything except where we're going to start demoing to get?
They have actually
everything
given me
back
clearance to tear the building down and to clean my oil spill up. And I think one of the vehicles are still trying to see if they have a buyer for it.
May 13th.
May 12th. It's on there.
Price did you get on that truck then?
He priced it to me for $80,000 and, he's not giving me the mileage on it yet, so. That style truck, a new truck's about $260,000.
Jimmy, do you know, when we buy like a normal passenger vehicle, we get the huge government concessions on the vehicles. Is there anything like that on large equipment that might help us make a new purchase a lot cheaper? We need to find out, because that makes a huge difference. Maybe they can tell us, because those government concessions make sense to buy a new one versus use for a vehicle.
One thing I thought was interesting that Mr. Binger told us was, said when they get ready to sell a roll-off truck, it usually has a lot of mileage on it, and they're wanting to get rid of it because it's ready to break down. That it pays you to buy a new roll-off truck, and then you have a warranty with it. And now the front loader, we couldn't afford to buy a new one.
And guys, here's the way I look at things. We're there for the long term. So we need to try to set up to be there to take care of business long term. So however, once it comes to you, however you want to look at it is, we're not going to be there 5 years and leave. We're going to be there to take care of the people.
And that roll-off truck is used just about every day.
Oh, it is used every day.
So I'm leaning toward a new one on the roll-off truck.
He did say they had of course, we've not looked into it, it may not be worth a flip, but they have a leasing program too, where you can lease a new truck.
And I haven't really talked to anybody on the leasing or the new ones per se. I did a lot of searching online to see what they have, and but a lot of the used trucks I went and looked at, they're upwards 170,000 miles on them. So that's just something to think about for once the insurance clears us and to see what we have to work with.
Most diesel, when you run it, somewhere around 400, still on the line. Keep the oil filters instead of changing.
Any other questions?
Thank y'all.
Thank you for your report. Commissioner Hill?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 3 items. The first one, I make a motion to finalize the closing and donation back to the contiguous property owners of 0.32 miles of Lit Branch Road. The deed work is complete, and it just requires the final blessing of the commission. So I'll put that in the form of a motion.
Second by Commissioner Meaden. Any questions? Yes. Commissioner Stronke?
This 3/10 of an acre, whatever, that will be put back on the tax roll?
On the tax roll, 0.32 miles.
Well, that's got to be addressed. There's land all over this county that are right of way dedicated to the county and it's never been used. Therefore, it ought to be on the tax rolls.
As I understand it, it reattaches to the contiguous property, correct, sir? Mr. Attorney?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not 0.32 acres, it's
It's
0.32
0.32
miles.
miles. It's a sliver of the end of the road so they can put up a gate and prevent hooliganism.
It'll go back to the
Any other questions? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, call roll.
Thank you for that.
19 ayes, 1 no. Motion passes.
The second item, it's in your packets, The Lick Branch Road isn't included in this adjustment. These are the new roads that have been added to the, or the additions and the deletions from the Carter County road list. Laurel Highlands Drive, Rhododendron Lane, and have been added, and the donation of Lick Branch Road back to the property owners has been deleted. So I move that we accept the highway list for 2018. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Hill, Commissioner Brown, second. Any questions? Commissioner Johnson?
Not the one on the rhododendron lane, that's who, putting on out there. Yes. Is that correct? And I know it's Stone Bay. Was that not approved by the planning commission as a mountain development?
Yes,
Which
sir.
the agreement is that once, it can be a stone, but if it's ever tried to set back for the county, it had to tell them in compliance of their pavement issues.
Exactly, Mr. Johnson. That was one of the original mountain subdivision, private road subdivisions that we had. That piece of property, there is notes in the minutes that it would never be requested to be public road. It has never met the criteria of being a public road. We did soundings under Mr. Perkins when the poor attempt to pave that road. It did not meet the criteria, and that's the reason at that time it wasn't accepted. So that's where we stand today.
So in other words, it should not be accepted until it comes into compliance, right?
That's the way I understand it. That's the way we've always worked. So that's 6, 2, and 1.
What order did you vote in?
Voted in one.
Voted in fine. What voted in? You've done that. This is just a road that you voted in.
Big road.
Done that.
The property owners made quite a, the property owners upgraded. We gave them a punch list, they complied with the punch list, and we adopted the road. It was this time last year.
Man, I should have been, but it's down county road. You guys voted in the county road. Put it on.
But it voted in, but it was not acceptable.
Last time I looked at it, sir, it was not accepted gravel road.
Voted in as a
Well, I'm the
gravel road.
road superintendent. I want to road mountain development things in it. The agreement was, and they came in from the commission that it'll never go to the county, but we told them if it does, and the written stipulation was it has to meet these minimum standards. They tell me that we've already voted on the rain in, it don't meet.
It's the same standards that Williams Lane did, and,
There's a mountain standards set out by the planning commission, which is the rules of development.
the cabinet commission has not been involved in this plan, this approving, or the commission has approved county roads up until now. We wasn't informed of that until the last, highway committee meeting.
I don't agree with that, but I'm not going to vote it.
Okay, any other questions? We're clear on Commissioner Hill's motion, second by Commissioner Brown. Okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll. Eighteen ayes, 3 noes. Motion passes. Mr. Hill.
All right, finally, also attached to the minutes, the committee recommended that we approve an applicant, give Mr. Colbach permission to apply for a construction on a bridge grant project. And that passed, I believe, unanimously. So the recommendation of the committee, I would move that we approve this to the final blessing of the full commission.
Commissioner Hill's motion, second by Commissioner Brown. Any questions?
Yeah, what the motion?
To approve the bridge grant.
To repeat your motion again, so.
There's an application for construction of a bridge grant project that Mr. Colbach asked the committee for permission to proceed with. The committee approved it, and we are to advance it to the full commission, which I'm doing this time.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Seeing here none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Seal, I want to say something here. You're talking about the road. I'm gonna bring it up. There was a lady called me about a month, out of Oakland, Galilee. Her name is Bruce Winters. Now this road has got a road sign on it. 131 Old Indian Road. And her husband died, and he wasn't touching, maybe 3 of us gravel. It was raining and everything to get up to the graveyard behind the, pretty close to her house down the street. But yet, we as county officials, this poor woman is a taxpayer. Poor man dead with the taxpayers. They don't expect much out of the county. I love the gravel system. And according to the law, the road superintendent gonna do it. So what is the poor woman supposed to do?
Is this a county road?
What's the county road or not? She was in trouble, somebody died, and we don't know the gravel. See, a lot of these roads in the county, it might not be on the road list, but all of it's county roads. She lives on it. We go to the road to Texas.
Fitzgerald, didn't we get Earl check $20,000 to do these cemetery roads and put it out for bid?
Yes, sir. Should this be discussed in a committee?
No bids, Mayor?
We actually approved the bid, and I think they did their first job what, last week?
Yeah, actually, there were 2 bids received. The bid was let. Mr. Bobby Tribbett was awarded the contract to do this work. Last week, we got our first call. Mr. Caldwell and his crew works with Mr. Tribbett. Once the call comes in, they'll go out and assess the road and make a determination as to the extent of work that needs to be done. They will advise Mr. Tribbett either to bring truck and transport stone and spread stone if that's all that's required, or if there's some excavation work required, then they will advise him that he needs to bring the other equipment. This contract is $60 per ton to transport the stone and spread it. There's $100 per hour for additional equipment if excavation is required. So I'm pleased to announce that we are now finally in a position where we can service the bulk of the road requests that come in based on the $20,000 allocation that will get us through the end of the year. The goal is, by budget time, we should have a better idea as to what this cost is going to be ongoing. Right now, we don't know. We have approximate numbers that have been collected through the highway department, but we're in a much better situation now. So, you know, it's pretty rough there for 2+ years having to turn every request away. So we are in a position to accommodate those now as they come in.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Tribbett called me down the road and had a Stony Creek already. So he's doing the job. All you gotta do is call Bobby Tribbett, the lady asked me about it, and I told her what was going on with the county, couldn't do nothing on account of the situation.
Thank you, sir.
We was working on trying to get, so Bob's already been to have Stony Creek of traveling cemetery road.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tribbett's not in the me, Mr. Chairman. He puts E on me for his name and I don't.
Thank you for that clarification, Commissioner True. Commissioner Jenkins, you're up next with law enforcement, but I know you've got a couple others. You want to go all three at once?
Law enforcement, I would just read the minutes. Parks and Rec, I'd read the minutes. Rules and bylaws, I handed out a handout right before all this is a copy of the revised rule that we voted on last month. I just need to make a motion to approve this updated version of this rule into our handbook. I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Jenkins, seconded by Commissioner Lyons. Any questions about the rules?
Which one are we voting on?
It's,
It starts with special meetings, is what's at the top.
and it's about commissioner compensation. We discussed it and voted it through last session. This really codifies it. Commissioner Jenkins and his committee rewritten the rule. Everybody see it? Everybody's got a copy of where we are? You okay, Commissioner Tripp? It's okay?
Can we vote on this first?
Yeah, let's vote on this first. Any questions for Commissioner Jenkins? Don't say any. Madam Clerk, call the roll. So everybody needs to be updated your handbook.
That's all I have on the rules of bylaw. What was your question about Parks and Rec?
You the ladies. You know, I was looking over this thing about this park down there, about 9.5 acres.
Yeah.
And they've kind of got estimates here. Anywhere from 300 to 400,000 to fix it. Is that correct?
Which one are you talking about? There's two sets of minutes. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. Oh, I see. The Gap Creek Park?
Yeah.
Can I answer that for you?
Absolutely.
Mr. Tripp, on the Parks and Rec, on the Gap Creek Park,
Yeah.
it came back up for redesign. Instead of having two ball fields, it's only going to end up with one larger dog parks on it and some other less expensive things. So we're down to about, you had to get it cold, I think we're down to about $133,000 on it. And we have some private individual group that may be supporting us on that hopefully.
Are they gonna build the road in there?
A road, there's gonna be walking trails, there's not gonna be a physical road in there, no, sir. There will be a pedestrian, bridge that's there.
Yeah.
And then there's a low water crossing that's already TDEC approved to allow us to take construction equipment and or, any maintenance equipment we need there, sir.
And guys, I say, read the minutes. These are such detailed minutes. He does such a great job. We've got several different projects going on right now. I could spend 45 minutes talking to you about every project that we're doing already. But y'all read the minutes, and if you've got questions, come on by. Sit down on Parks and Rec meeting. We have fun.
Or you can give me a call, I'll put it all in. We're planning commission to assist in developments and assist any way possible. And we can kind of give you an update too, Ron, if you need, sir.
Great shout out to Chris and the planning department for all his help.
Does that include the lighting and everything on this?
No, that's on the early stages. It's just got a concept plan right now. No, when you get lighting, you're gonna look at several $100,000 once you get there. Just lighting just for the park itself, just under the street lamp type situation. That's the only thing that we included in there.
Director Schuler, while you're up, anything from planning commission?
Yes, sir. As you know, January 1, we started issuing our own building permits. We no longer participate in the state building permits. And of course, about the first week of December all the way through about the middle of March is probably the slowest time in construction. But at this time, as of last week, we're just a little over $9,000 in building permits coming straight back to our general fund here. And as you know, in our budget, when you see $33,600, that is our electrical, that's what we have to maintain in our budget for our electrical permits, which is a state permit still. It's subcontracted out to a subcontractor, and then we issue the permits for the state of Tennessee. So that will always be there until we adopt and go for an electrical inspector. And I don't think the county wants that responsibility right now. Maybe when Ballard Brightridge, that's what I'm trying to think of. Maybe one of these days that'll change, but I don't foresee it in the near future. The next meeting is the 27th. We hadn't had a meeting for the last 2 months. Been waiting on subdivision to come out, and we'll have some updates and how we're operating now under our new rules and regulations and our standard operating procedures there.
Questions for Mr. Sheets? Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Nominating committee?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one item brought to us because of a vacancy on the agricultural committee. Position of farmhand has become open with the departure of Ronnie Hazelwood. You have in your packet a dossier or application for a Michael Nideffer, and I'm putting the name of Michael Nideffer before the full commission as a motion to fill that slot on the agriculture.
Thank you, Commissioner Garland. Any questions for Commissioner McMahon? Seeing none, clerk call roll. Not for the on committee.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. 20 ayes, 1 no, motion passes. County Attorney, I don't think I've left that in, please. County Attorney.
Just to hit the high points, 2 things as far as litigation update. The legal tax sale is still progressing. I think the final notice of the sale is set to be published in the press, I believe on the 25th. Sunday paper, the 25th. As of right now, there's around 90 parcels still in that sale, and the sale is scheduled for March 23rd. That's Friday, 9 a.m. here in this courtroom. Secondly, there was some new litigation filed against the county, or naming the county as a party since our last meeting. It was by Dallas Hartley, a former inmate here that filed an action in U.S. District Court, and over in a medical treatment issue that's just in the very early stages, but it was something recently filed. As always, I just give general updates about litigation. If any of y'all have a question of more detail, I'd be glad to discuss it with any of you one-on-one or whatever. If you've got some question about any litigation the county's in. Otherwise, just generally, same as always, opinions and research done each month for nearly every office in the county. Draft all the resolutions you all considered this month. We did finalize the Lick Branch Road closure, which I will finalize this month. There was another highway, if I can find it in here somewhere, that this month, well, the bridge dedications that were approved last month, I've been corresponding with Representative Beal's office, and those are supposedly being approved through the General Assembly. I don't know if that's happened yet to formalize those bridge discussions. Otherwise, I'll just rely on my written minutes report, which I submit every month, and it's included in the minutes every month, unless anybody has any questions.
Questions for your friend? None. Okay, any commission reports or comments? Mr. Lewis, you're up first.
I've got a commission comment here. You know, there's been a lot of school shootings here lately. Now, we got a school in my district, Little River, down in Boone's. I mean, way out in Boone's. Now, so far, we had a resource officer. Mr. Lumpkin, can you give me Mr. Ward, can you give me a update on that?
We have been in conversation about this from start to get a funded issue, but we have 3 in the academy right now. One of those is going to get dedicated to Double Miller. Short term, I will have to come back. Either, don't know if we want to do it before the end of the fiscal year, or just put it in the new budget for long term, but we're going to have additional funding for that position. And Board's been talking about adding an additional position for the supervisor, which will give us one for school plus the supervisor.
We've got a supervisor right now that's assigned to a school, so when he has to go and do investigations and whatnot, it takes him away from that school. So if you have a fully staffed, that's our roles. And then you have a supervisor that can go out to school or even actively
Fill in on sickness, training, court dates, make it ready for court date. But, in all honesty, it's been a funding issue. We're funding it short term, but I can't go long term.
Johnny, right now, of course, you know, we've seen over years, most recently just last week with the water issue. We are probably one of the few systems between here and Nashville that has the staff that we currently have. We are very proud. But Mr. Lunsford and I talked about this just the other day. After the shooting, and the next day we got into the discussion about how we make this work. But the fact still remains, we still are one short. Now, when we say one short, that little building, Doc's talked about it, we've discussed it, it has been a budget issue. Now, as we go into this budget, Krista, Ms. Bird, and myself, staff members, we have been looking at our revenue, we've been looking at our expenditures from 16 to 17 into the next year. One of the things that we are looking at and waiting for will be PEP numbers in terms of our ADM. Whether it's going to be close to the same, we'd like for it to be up, but could be down. The other big piece of our budget is the insurance increase. And we're hearing right now somewhere on the county side, 4%. And, you know, if we're going to have an increase, which we're pretty sure we'd be tickled death with 4%, but we don't know that. So I'm saying all this is as we work through this budget, I will communicate with our board in the next 2 workshops, and we will basically give them a rundown of our budget and basically what we can and can't do. But it is our goal to try and find a way to put an officer at Little Millie and have that extra officer that.
You all fund one and the schools fund one, so that's what we're trying to get to.
Now, they have told us from day one, since school started, that the sheriff department, either the school is going to apply for a grant.
We want a grant, we
But
want to see.
now, school's going to be out there shortly. And we still ain't going to have a resource officer.
We're working toward it now. They didn't get the grant.
Correct.
You all couldn't act because it would have been supplanting or whatever they call it whenever you're applying. So, you know, had to wait to see. Well, he's got notice that he didn't get the grant. So now we're back to square one. Square one is us looking within what our inventory work with. You guys looking maybe to see if we can get some help from your end with that. Little Millie SRO officer in place and have that SRO officer that is the supervisor able to go from school to school and act as a building when needed, but also be free up to do.
The graduation date's April the 13th, so he will be there shortly thereafter, provided he doesn't quit on the way for their job.
Now, look here. There ain't no law that I know of keep these people from shooting somebody. Now, we put the foot around here, waiting for the money for this, money for that, for the resource officer.
Well, give us the money.
I have to
We'll
have
do
the
the
money.
lights.
I have to have the money to pay him. I have to have the money to pay him. I have to have that.
You got a $7.5 million budget, you don't have much money to pay for all.
Funding mechanism for that.
I don't think we're going to settle this here.
No, but we're working on it, Mr. Chairman.
We've got it settled.
Okay, all right, well,
Commissioner Hill, you got a comment?
Thanks. Just to follow up, I made some flyers here. Can you pass these out? This goes to what these gentlemen are talking about here, and I'm on it.
Y'all realize that,
Yes,
that school,
this is,
that's all right.
look at this fellow. This guy could have been any one of the coaches at any of our schools And here's a picture of the kids that died a week ago, and this has been weighing on my mind a lot. I am told that it's not a matter of if something grievous is going to happen, but when. And this really, we can't put this off. We may have begun an officer, and forgive me, sir, I quote this, $22,843 is what we need to figure out, plus an insurance package.
No, it's gonna be about $30,000 plus a car, plus training, plus equipment. $22,000 more.
Well, I cannot urge you strongly enough. I mean, we're spending quite a bit to improve security, ingress, egress at the courthouse here. These are our kids, and Little Milligan is due a resource officer, and I support these gentlemen that are here.
One final question. Why don't you take a resource off from one of these other schools, put it in the middle?
Because then
Then you have the money.
the exact schools will be without.
Hey, I know that school won't have one, but who is in the isolation?
And I'm gonna say this, and so I brought it up. Nobody didn't know that they were without an SRO.
Very good point.
Until it was brought up in the public business.
But these other schools got open. The one that got open was gonna have no.
You will have one as soon as I can.
But Little River, now the boom,
You all will have to sign. And I just need to say this, again, Florida School, terrible thing when the shooting took place, they had a security guard and an SRO.
Sheriff, if you had the money tonight, when would you, this officer
He
be
graduates
paid?
at 13. As soon as I can get him and get him to a short training period and get him up there, he'll be up there. Just as quick as I can get him there. Now, he may not stay.
Commissioner Miller, you have a comment, and then Commissioner Bonner.
Look at these little youngsters. What's this with one of your youngsters? Could you put a price on it? Could you put a price on a kid? There's no way. Dexter said he's had a problem to the truck.
I do.
I was impatient. You know, I hope it's small he has been up there. But these not, we're killing time. We're impatient. They've been 3 killings in schools in January. I forgot how many each time they killed. Valentine's Day, they killed 16 little children. Well, I called them because they were in high school. This is one of your kids, or your grandkids. What would you be doing? You'd be worse than Doc Miller on Dexter, Mr. Ward. I know you would. We've got people coming into our country in the name of religion. Says the more they kill, more they're going to heaven. And it's not. What's the easy target? Right here's the easy target, boys. It's right here. Every kid in America don't deserve to be shot down like dogs. I'm asking this commission tonight to approve enough money to hire a resource officer. We give money to this and we give money to that tonight. Where did the money come from 2 months ago? Broke. But tonight we've got plenty of money. We've got these people, they're in our communities. Muslims in our community, it's like a butcher knife to get him. I used to teach them the more they kill, the more they have reward in heaven. But now then they say, hey, if you get one, you still got that reward in heaven. Study your religion, folks. Study your religion. You won't shake your head this way. You'll be saying, hey, let's give Dr. Miller the money to fund a resource officer.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Today, they was a kid killed his tail in a middle school. I didn't get all the details. But if they'd been something, they could have prevented it. But this is your kids, I'm begging you. Let's find a resource officer.
We all got it. Commissioner Peters.
Sure. We have. How much would it cost to fund a resource officer
till the end of the school year, through this budget cycle.
We currently have that taken care of. He's in the academy. He's been dedicated to go up there. So right now, I don't think that's an issue. We're in the black in our line item for salaries, so I think we're okay. Long-term, we'll be coming back and either, probably within the next budget year, and asking you all to fund an additional position fully. And you're talking about what, 40,000?
About 37 salary, it's been a little.
We ain't accomplished nothing if we pull somewhere else.
What else?
Believe it or not. If they kill one, a little bit of this county.
School resource officer has to be a certified full-time police officer, and he has to have the SRO training. That's what an SRO is. We've got it taken care of, I think, unless something else, Bill runs off, he walks away, gets a better.
When will he be done?
Within a couple of weeks of the 13th.
Within a couple of weeks?
Yep.
And you're going to have one there?
April. You graduate the 13th of April.
That's the earliest, it don't matter how much money we give you.
No matter how much money.
That's the earliest you can have one there.
He has to graduate.
And you're going to have one there?
Yes, we're going to have
Okay. Then,
problems fixed.
I
It's
suggest
about $2 million worth, about a year to get it done.
I suggest that the budget committee look into seeing what they can come up with.
And Mr. Peters,
So
that's
that's
all
all
up
we
at that
can
time.
That's all we can do.
School will be up and in.
Well, Commissioner Von Cannon, you've got the floor, sir.
We went through this about 2 months ago. And I don't have the money. School department, I don't have the money. So the motion was made, as I remember, to put it out of the fund balance. And it was voted down. Now, did that not happen? Did I just think that is? You voted, we voted it, you voted it in. So, where are we now? You don't treat one kid any different than the other kids. You just do not, just because they live 30, 40 miles out there. They're more vulnerable probably than the people in town.
I went to school up there.
So, I make a motion again. No, I can't do that. You'll vote it down.
Can I have one more from John?
Very quick.
Mr. Ward, will our kids be counted absent if we refuse to send them to unsafe environment? It's unsafe now because we've not got a resource officer. Are we allowed to keep our young'uns home?
Look, unfortunately, state law dictates, no, unfortunately, the state law says that the kids have to be in school.
I know what it says, but you furnish these resource officers, every school but one in Carter County. The state law says, hey, if you have one, you will have all.
State law does.
But now, hey, I've been talking to other people about this. Our kids shouldn't have to go to unsafe environment. Do you agree with that?
I agree that you need a resource officer at Little Mill, 100%. I agree.
We don't wait till school's out like we did last year. Let's get this thing going.
I think the sheriff has already made himself clear. It doesn't make any difference how much money we throw at this. There isn't somebody available to send up there. So if we voted, if we gave him $40,000 tonight, it would change him to nothing.
And everybody keeps saying you pointing at me, Dr. Ward. Well, it's not us. It's a funding issue. And we've got to take it care of without extra funding. But we are going to be coming for the funding sometime between now and the end of the year. You know, we gotta have money to pay them. We gotta buy a car for them. We gotta buy uniforms for them. We gotta send them to the academy. You know, we don't have them sitting on shelves where if somebody quits, I can walk over and pull one off the shelf and send them to Little Mill. When I have to quit, it takes me 1 year to replace them.
John, let's make sure we all understand this. Right now, if we had the money, we still have an officer that won't be available until the 13th of April. So on April 13th, we can work this out through this cycle. There's very little left. Like I said, this would be an issue that we need to talk here and
Yeah, but my point, you look at some of the cycle, but the school's still gonna be out before you get them all done.
April 13th, you're still going to have about a month and a half of school left.
So you got those days, John,
What's the answer? What's the answer?
I don't know,
We don't have SRO options.
and he put one up.
Since it's obvious we're never going to fund an SRO, I make a motion that we make an exception and allow all teachers in Little Milligan to carry handguns.
We're like ducks.
I think that's a state law. All right. Hour is getting late unless there's another pressing issue, which I don't think there is. I call us adjourned.